Chapter 795. As rookies and important training targets of the Holy City, the power armors they received were all mid-upper level. Han Dong and Abel's power armors were of unique, purple, quality, and the other three's power armors were of excellent, blue, quality. At the same time, they were integrated with the most advanced steam technology. Due to the half-hour repair time given by the Great Demon Captain, the knights who experienced the power of technology for the first time were eager to give it a try. After dozens of days of rest, they were full of energy. They immediately began the adaptive practice within the team, which then slowly developed into an intense practice between teams. The mechanical deity assistants standing on both sides of the square also collected data related to the operation of the power armors through multiple auxiliary artificial eyes. Han Dong also took out the special armor custom-made by Newton, the Holy Magic Cloak, and played with his teammate. Not long after, heavy blood pressure covered the entire team. "Nicholas, your power armors seem to be very good." It was Lucius' team. Blood Knight Lucius, who was ranked second in the previous night conference, was also given special treatment. It corresponded to a medium-sized armor with a cloak structure. The interior was equipped with a specially designed blood sac crystal tube that could extract the high-energy blood carried by Lucius in advance and turn it into blood steam, with 300% operating power. Necromancer Lunz received a strange support-type armor. It was more like a floating seat made of dark steam. It could carry Lunz and allow him to fly at low to medium speed. The back end of the seat was also equipped with a metal skull made of internal plating technology, by perfectly injecting metal into the bones and inheriting the features of the bones and replacing them with metal. Then, it was connected to the main body's nerves and magic circuits through metal tubes and sensors. It was also known as the servo skull. It could perform necromancy, perfect double casting, through the skull. Shadow Jin Senior Sister Jin received a kind of close-fitting soft armor made with the same metal textile technology as Han Dong's. It covered the whole body and was equipped with a large number of miniature sensor traps. It could perfectly fit Senior Sister Jin's movements, provide power support, and conceal her breath. It could kill the target in a faster and more secretive way. "Seniors." As Han Dong greeted them, he had a bad premonition. "Why don't our two teams have a spar? Is it convenient to check if there are any problems with our armor?" Looking at Lucius's posture, it seemed that he was serious. After all, there were dozens of sparring matches between teams in the throne room at the same time. The sound of magic and physics colliding ignited many people's desire to fight. However, Han Dong received the power armor almost a month in advance, and his excitement had been exhausted. Furthermore, Han Dong and Captain Xia Ye had already fought for a total of 300 rounds using the simplest physical combat method last night. Currently, he had no desire to spar at all. Besides, because too many things had happened last night, Han Dong only had one thing on his mind: sleep. Han Dong pretended to be stupid and said, "You want to test the power armor? There's no need to spar. To be honest, Senior Lucius, I have a cooperative relationship with the machinery faith. I can repair it for you." After that, Han Dong deliberately revealed the gear cross on the back of his robe. At the same time, he opened the demon eye on his forehead and pretended to be a senior inspector. It was at this moment that a scorching hot palm landed on Han Dong's shoulder. Abel took the initiative to step forward. "Nicholas didn't seem to have rested well last night. Let us spar with the seniors." Not only Abel, but Wunli and Mia were also full of energy. Among them, Mia had the idea of protecting her husband. As for Demps, he looked indifferent. "Oh, come on." The spar was about to begin. The dragon flame collided with the blood, stirring up a huge amount of bloody mist. While the skeleton was recovering, it was also accompanied by lightning. At the same time, a super-fast shadow would appear behind everyone from time to carry out a super-fast assassination. They could only rely on the cooperation of Mia and Wunli to delay Senior Jin, who was so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. The huge battle also attracted the attention of several mechanical deity assistants. Sometimes they would take the initiative to intervene in the spar, making detailed adjustments to the armor and providing critical repairs. As time went by, the members of both sides were completely immersed in the enhancement effect of the power armor and the battle. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Han Dong slowly retreated from the battlefield and planned to find a quiet area to rest for a while. Who knew? Another aura, an even stronger smell of blood, came from the side. Ha ha ha! A laughter with strong charm and a fishy smell entered Han Dong's ears. Even though he had yet to see her, her seductive laughter was like a drop of red dye dripping into Han Dong's mind, painting a fresh and fragrant woman in his mind. Captain Shea. Unique materials, the latest technology, and the seal of the machinery faith. It seems like you're not being honest. As a member of the Secret Word Knights, you should be working hard in the secret museum. But you privately established a close relationship with Malone, Shinigami, Mr. Black and White, and me. I thought these relationships were enough. I didn't expect you to have a private relationship with Newton. Haha. With Mr. Black and White's permission, I also built my own biological laboratory. Due to some accidents, I established a scientific cooperation with Mr. Newton. I'm not a member of the machinery faith, and I'm only a third party. Humph. That's good. I don't like those mechanical bastards. The things they worship are already out of touch with humanity to a certain extent. Let's not talk about this for now. According to the Great Demon and the Parliament, once the gathering is over, we'll officially depart. It seems like you'll fall asleep when the expedition departs. Captain Shea, you've been whipping me for an entire night. How can I be in good spirits? Humph. Ordinary people can't even get whipped by me. Come with me, I'll take you to the Eternal Castle, to rest for a while. Isn't the sparring only half an hour? There's going to be some special forces entering later, and the Great Demon has prepared a very long speech. It's enough for you to rest for a few hours. Besides, you haven't entered the Eternal Castle before, right? I'll take you to see it in advance, in case you don't have a chance in the future. Okay. Han Dong had a helpless expression on his face. He vaguely felt that Captain Shea seemed to have other intentions, and it wasn't just taking him to rest. After all, Captain Shea's other identity was a duchess, a first-class noble, and she was also a core member of the royal family. Chapter 796. Eternal Castle, Royal Palace District. Han Dong only had the privilege to enter this area because of the duchess. Walking along the luxuriously decorated corridors, the patrolling guards all lowered their heads in front of the duchess and addressed her respectfully. The aura exuded by each of the imperial guardsmen made Han Dong shudder. Nicholas, do you know how the Holy City's royal family was formed? Did the former king of Italos pass it down through the hereditary system? No. More than 200 years ago, the king of Italos, Vittorio Emanuele II, died when the hybrid demons awakened. The exiles from all over Europe gathered in Italos and drove away the few hybrid demons to build the Holy City. As the Holy City stabilized and more people appeared, the Holy City elected the parliamentary monarchy. A few people with strength, wisdom, and virtue were all high-ranking members of parliament. Under their supervision, a special royal family system was established. As the era changed, the meaning of the royal family changed. Since it was the symbol of the highest status, it had to be the strongest in the destiny realm. At that time, before the formation of the Knight Orders, the highest goal of the people with fate was to become a member of the royal family with their own strength. Commander Shea, you mean the royal family members were selected through some kind of competition? That's right, rather than royal family. You can think of it as the first-generation Knight Orders. Some of the older generation liked to call the royal family 0. Knight Orders 0. Later, the formation of the 13 Knight Orders and the detailed establishment of the royal family system were derived from the rules of the royal family. Of course, as time passed, the Holy City's royal family changed. The fighting power of the Holy City gradually leaned towards the 13 Knights, and the royal family slowly retreated behind the scenes. Some descendants of the royal knights were also counted as members of the royal family and received certain preferential treatment in the Holy City. The royal family also no longer recruited directly from the knights but secretly recruited directly from the 13 Knight Orders. Knight Orders 0. That means these guards belong to the royal family. Then wouldn't the king be a commander? You're not qualified to know about the king. Come in first. I have something to ask you. Along with Xia Ya's push and pull, Han Dong was dragged into a luxurious bedroom that emitted a unique fragrance. The fishy smell and red decorations were obviously Duchess Shea's quarters in the royal district. I'll lend you my bed to rest. But before you sleep, there's something I need to talk to you about. Before Han Dong could react, he was pushed onto the soft bed. What's the matter, Commander Xia Ya? In such a strange atmosphere, Han Dong had a very bad premonition. He was afraid that if he continued to delve deeper, his protagonist aura would not be able to withstand it. I heard that the council is interested in recruiting you. However, since you participated in the Great Expedition, even if you want to be an intern member, you have to wait until the end of the Great Expedition. At that time, you will join the Parliament as a returnee of the Great Expedition, and there will be less gossip. Before that, are you interested in joining the royal family? As a duchess, I happen to have an extra training slot under my name. Moreover, the members of the royal family who are directly recruited by me will receive the same privileges as Count. You will have more opportunities here. According to Han Dong's understanding, the royal family was more like an elite training camp. By the way, isn't Senior Lucius good? Lucius is indeed good. But he has other things to do in the Scarlet Knight. Moreover, you are more interesting in comparison, especially the Sacred Blood incident. That happened last night. Are you willing to come? Commander Xia Ya, I'm already too busy in the Secret Word Knights. If I have the title of the royal family, my freedom will be completely deprived. As Commander Xia Ya knows, I'm in contact with many people in private. I also have many secrets and some necessary things that I need to deal with and supervise personally. Thank you for your kindness, Commander Xia Ya, but I don't have enough energy. Even if it's the Parliament, I will try my best to refuse. Compared to power, I prefer freedom. I hope Commander Xia Ya can understand. While Han Dong tactfully refused, the shadow of the whip flashed. Smack! The familiar whipping feeling spread throughout Han Dong's body, causing him to roll around on the bed in pain. However, while he was rolling around, Han Dong felt a nourishing blood energy spread throughout his body, completely healing the accumulated injuries in his body. Next, he only needed to have a good sleep to recover to his best state. Humph! Hurry up and rest. I'll call you before the expeditionary army departs. Before Han Dong could thank her, Xia Ya had already left. Han Dong put his hands behind his head and stared at the ceiling. Commander Xia Ya probably invited me to join the royal family for some power struggle. Sigh, I don't even have time for research, let alone politics. Let's sleep. Hopefully, Dr. Swollen has already packed everything outside the city. While Han Dong was sleeping soundly in the Duke's bedroom, between the thrones, the machinery faith's basic cultivation of the power armor had been completed. In the next phase, all the special forces formed for the Great Expedition would be deployed, including 1. The combat nun that absolutely countered the hybrid demons. 2. Taken from the fallen knights in the Tal prison, the research of the machinery faith combined with the resurrection potion provided by Han Dong to create the synthetic brain death soldier, a zombie force that retained the ability of a knight, replaced the body with mechanical prosthetics, and installed an information collector in the body. 3. The eternal night wolves, that were 10 times faster than the expeditionary army for reconnaissance and surprise attack. 4. Boundary masters selected from the Sorcerer Knight Legion and the Misfortune Knight Legion would form the Magic Net Envoys. They could simultaneously create a magic net boundary that covered the expeditionary army at any time and under any circumstances. 5. The Eye of the Expedition, formed by the Crow Company under the Knights of Plague, the members of the Lightless Religion under the Wind Knight Legion, the Writers' Association, and the Prophets' Association to provide large-scale reconnaissance and illusion defense for the Great Expedition. 6. There were also some special parts that did not need to be separated from the legions due to their secrecy. At the same time, from the back of the Eternal Castle, several dragons from the magic world flew and stopped on the pillars around the square under the control of the Imperial Army. Some of the Imperial Army dragon riders would cooperate with the Expeditionary Army's air force to join the Great Expedition. Controlling the dragon race was not as simple as spending destiny points. Similar to how Malone became the King of Hell, individuals had to go to the Destiny world where the dragons existed and undergo the extremely difficult Dragon Knight examination. Finally, the Great Demon Captain gave a speech about the Great Expedition, which involved the stages of the Great Expedition, the estimated time plan, and the final goal of the Great Expedition. At the end of the impassioned speech, the emotions of the knights were raised to the highest. The dragons standing around the square raised their noble heads and let out a deafening roar. At this time, the Great Demon Captain took another step forward. On his back, a demonic wing that was more than 10 meters long suddenly grew out. Standing at the front of the bird's eye view, straightening his arm, pointing directly to the north, which was the final destination of the Great Expedition, the nest of a certain old King Frowny-Face city of London. Londinium. A loud and excited voice came from the mouth of the Great Demon Captain. Resounding between the thrones, suppressing the roars of several dragons, spreading throughout the holy city, "We are invincible in front of us." Chapter 797. When Han Dong fell asleep, he directly skipped the explanation of the various stages of the expedition and the appearance of the special forces. He almost woke up naturally. However, when Han Dong woke up, the person standing beside the bed was not Commander Xiaya, but a familiar person wearing a white mask, Mr. Black and White Daytime. This was the royal area, and Han Dong slept on Duchess Xiaya's bed. The way Mr. Black and White entered was obviously abnormal. For some reason, being stared at by Mr. Black and White made Han Dong feel uneasy, as if he was caught in the act. After all, Han Dong had stayed with Commander Xiaya for the whole night and did not inform his teacher before they set off for the expedition. "Teacher, Xiaya seems to have given you some opportunities and privileges. I came here this time because I have something to tell you." "Yes. You are outside the city, and compared to other knights, there is a clear difference. Your uniqueness may bring you convenience, but it may also bring you danger. You need to adjust yourself outside the city." "Yes. The main thing is to tell you one thing. The expedition is expected to take at least 2 years. During the expedition, there is a Gate of Destiny in the ruins of the city. The Expeditionary Army will also use the time when the garrison is resting to let some knights who are worth training, or those who are heavily polluted or seriously injured enter. You should be one of them. There is a problem here that needs to be paid attention to. There is a difference between the gate in the ruins outside the city and the gate in the holy city. Isn't the essence of the gate the entrance to the destiny space? Could it be because of the hybrid demons? Yes, even those guys outside the city who think they are superior to humans are still very interested in the gate of destiny. You also know that the hybrid demons have been trying to enter the destiny space for a long time. It's just that the destiny system absolutely rejects non-human creatures. Even the most sophisticated disguise will be seen through. Decades ago, the hybrid demons began to mix with humans to obtain dependence with human blood. They sent them into the destiny space in an attempt to decipher the secrets of the destiny space and obtain the internal power. But when the dependents pass through the destiny space, there is a high probability that their memories will be erased and they will become residents of the destiny space. For so many years, the Yimo had been thinking of ways to touch fate. They began to modify the Gate of Destiny and used a device that could be described as huge to interfere with the Gate of Destiny. This is the information I obtained through astrology. I don't know how they're doing or to what extent they can interfere. In short, if the expeditionary army attacks the hybrid demon's city and tries to enter the destiny world through the hybrid demon's modified gate, they need to carefully consider it. Okay, thank you for your reminder. Yes. After saying that, Mr. Black and White, who was in his white-faced state, turned into photons and dissipated in the light. Teacher also has many secrets. Let's go. A modified gate of destiny? We'll see then. Han Dong secretly left the castle. When he returned to the square area, he was just in time for the last item before departure, energy drive. The endless energy, which was personally developed by the investor, would follow the team. This project could be said to be one of the key factors that determined whether the great expedition could proceed smoothly. After all, the power armor worn by everyone, as well as the super-large mobile sanctum, and the large steam carriage carrying goods, all needed energy to be driven. Endless energy can be said to be the core of the great expedition. The hybrid demons are not stupid. If the energy system is too big, such as dragging a nuclear power plant along with the army, once a war breaks out, the hybrid demons will inevitably lock the energy at the beginning and destroy it through various means. Therefore, in addition to achieving endless energy, it must also have the characteristics of concealment and not easy to destroy. How to achieve it? Maybe it's not a problem that can be solved by technology. We need to borrow the power of destiny. Just when Han Dong couldn't rely on existing knowledge to speculate the result, the Steam Knights directly released the finished product. Waves of steam overflowed from the center of the square. Something slightly larger than a normal person slowly rose up. Rather than calling it a device, it was more like a person. Investor? No. It's a robot that looks like the investor? Endless energy appeared in the form of a palanquin. At the bottom of the metal palanquin, 4 intelligent machines representing the highest technology of the Steam Knights acted as palanquins. These intelligent machines were all made of dense copper. Under the premise of maintaining 50% copper, it was fused with a special metal that was exchanged with a huge amount of points. This metal itself had a certain degree of spirituality and could easily achieve intelligent transformation and enslavement. These intelligent machines were imprinted with the 2 marks of the Steam Knights and the machinery faith at the same time. They were also known as terminators of hybrid demons. Due to the extremely high cost of production, they could not be mass-produced. There were less than 10 of them within the Steam Knight. At present, the terminators of hybrid demons were used as palanquins. Once any hybrid demons approached the endless energy during the march, they would immediately be annihilated by the intelligent metal. The so-called endless energy sat cross-legged on the metal palanquin. Rather than an energy source, it was more like a semi-living machine built with the investor as the prototype. It was a perfect handicraft made of golden fat that perfectly fit gears, copper pipes, plates, and other metal devices. It was then carefully polished by delicate hands. Its big belly was designed into a large mouth structure. Except for the leaders of the army, even the elite knights saw the true appearance of the endless energy for the first time. Some elite knights who knew the ability of the investor couldn't help but sigh. What a big deal! The investor actually took the initiative to peel off such a large amount of golden fat from his body. I see. Is this the endless energy? At this time, the palanquin bearers took out a small box of gold, silver, and jewelry and threw it into the body of the investor's machine through the big mouth on the belly. Gold coins, gems, and pearls were first ground into powder by the digestive organ made of metal, and then perfectly absorbed by the fat layer. Sizzle! A steam with golden light overflowed from the gaps of the machine. For a moment, all the knights in between the thrones felt that the power armor was replenished with energy. The energy consumed by the sparring was all replenished. Han Dong was not shocked by the design, but by the crazy ability of the investor. Wealth is energy? Is this the ability of my patron? Furthermore, this is just a fat substitute that was stripped from my patron's body. From the power armor to the mobile sanctum that must be used during the expedition, to the endless energy that could now drive the entire expeditionary force. He had to admit that the contribution of the Steam Knights to this expedition was definitely the greatest. Chapter 798. The hybrid demons that occupied the world were not interested in gold, silver, and jewelry at all. For more than 200 years, the survivors of the entire European continent, as well as parts of Asia and Africa, had gathered and lived in the Holy City. This also meant that there were large amounts of gold and silver mines outside the city. A large amount of treasures could also be found in the ruins of the city. In the early stages of the expedition, only a few carriages of gold would be enough to satisfy the energy supply of the entire expedition. At this point, the basic formation and various marching equipment tests had been completed. The road leading to the North Gate had been expanded half a year ago. The civilian areas along the way had been forcibly demolished to expand the road to a width of 100 meters and covered with a red carpet with golden edges. Only the brave and courageous expeditionary forces that were willing to sacrifice their lives for mankind were qualified to step on the red carpet and receive the blessings, cheers, reverence, and gratitude from the people of the Holy City. The carriages had been led to the city gate in advance. The expeditionary forces that had been selected through layers of selection walked towards the city gate in the simplest way. In this way, they would bid farewell to the Holy City. What awaited them would be a great expedition that would take several years, and some of them would be completely lost under the eternal night. Total number of people in the great expedition, including non-Knight God of Science and Technology, that provided technical support 3,280 people. The initial marching formation used a relatively stable semicircular formation that took into account both offense and defense. The formation of the humanoid units was as follows. The First Legion led by Death was the left wing of the expeditionary forces, surrounding the left half of the entire army in an arc shape. The Second Legion led by Malone was the right wing of the expeditionary forces. Same as above. The Fourth Legion led by Shea was the rear wing of the expeditionary forces, ensuring the safety of the rear of the army. At the same time, it provided healing and various support to the expeditionary forces. If the First and Second Legions were to suffer from a powerful area attack, there would be more serious casualties. The Knights of the Fourth Legion who were good at fighting would step forward to fill the gap. The Third Legion led by Jaros had more than 90% of mages and long-range attackers. They were mainly filled in the inner part of the formation, providing powerful long-range firepower support to the flanks and rear wings. In addition, the Special Forces were interspersed in different areas of the Legion, changing their positions according to the terrain and battle situation. Note: Air Troops. Considering that the dragons are one of the expeditionary army's trump cards and core combat power, if they follow the expeditionary army by flying, they will become too big of a target and easily be exposed. Therefore, all the members of the aerial forces used a type of pet egg that they had purchased from the Destiny space to store and carry the aerial mounts. During the march, the Air Force would also follow the main force and ride in the carriages. As for the composition of the Air Forces, Apart from a small portion of the Imperial Dragon Riders, the air forces were mainly composed of the Griffin Cavalry of the Wind Knights and the Black Hawk Regiment of the Behemoth Knights. Of course, there were also some knights in the army who could fly. If they encountered a large-scale aerial battle, they would also fight together. Mechanical units. Olivia Christian, the Grand Commander of the Holy Knights, was in charge of the mobile sanctum. Together with the mechanical deity assistant, red-robed bishop, it floated behind the army, adjacent to the 4th Legion. At the same time, there would be more than 10 boundary envoys guarding the sanctum to provide continuous concealment. Of course, this was not enough to ensure the safety of the mobile sanctuary. Therefore, after combining the opinions of the Grand Demon Commander, the Steam Knights were approved by the Council. Using half of the Steam City's engineers and the materials and manpower provided by the Knights of Misfortune, they spent a few months to build a military fortress that was 5 times the size of the sanctum. Demon King's Castle, a military fortress that incorporated the mobile construction technology, using magic brass and Demon King's crystal as the main materials, was meticulously built. It was located at the front of the army. Because of the size of the fortress, the dazzling magic crystal, and its position at the front, it could completely attract the attention of the hybrid demons. The sanctum, which was hidden behind an illusion, would be ignored to a large extent. The Grand Demon Commander, as well as the elite demons under his command and some secret forces, were hidden in this fortress and followed the army. Of course, such a huge fortress would consume almost 50% of the energy used during the march, so they would need to invest a large amount of treasures from their financial backers to support this fortress. The reason why the castle was built, in addition to protecting the sanctum, was a more important purpose. A hidden purpose hidden in the Great Expedition that was not disclosed to the public. Occupation and expansion. If the expeditionary army captured an important city ruin where the Gate of Destiny existed, the Demon King's Castle could be located in the center of the city as the core building, supplemented by the sanctum. With this, they could expand to the surroundings and build a miniature holy city. 1. The expeditionary army could garrison and rest in the miniature holy city for a long time to relieve the mental pressure accumulated during the Evernight. During the garrison period, they would also support some people to enter the Destiny Realm. 2. Using this to evaluate the possibility of territory expansion. In addition to the aforementioned Demon King's Castle and Mobile Sanctum, there was an important non-human unit that needed to be explained. Frownyface Eye of Expedition. This was the name of a special force and also the name of a facility. It was a special destiny crystal. Eye crystal collected by the Machinery Faith, the prophet of the Holy City, the author, and the members of the Lightless religion over decades. It was a semi-living sensory device created. Its appearance was a mechanical base plus a huge eye structure. The base was about 2 meters high, and the lightless eyeball was about 2.3 meters in diameter. It was set up in the center of the army. In the army, any perceptor who had been bound to this eye could use this eye to perform sensory overlay. It also had the effect of breaking illusions and unobstructed communication. Perceptors were interspersed in the various regiments of different armies. When the army entered the land deed area, the clockwork device's communication system would fail, and information would be transmitted through the perceptors connected to the eye. Even if they were isolated by the darkness, the Eye of Expedition could also be used as a lighthouse, emitting dimensional light beams to guide the expeditionary army lost in the darkness. In addition, there were some small and medium-sized armory, warehouse, and treasury that followed the army. Everything had gone through hundreds and thousands of decisions from the Holy City. All the factors that existed in the expeditionary army were the optimal results of discussions. Stepping out of the city gate, the entire army boarded their respective vehicles and galloped through the Gaines Forest in the north. The low-level demons and monsters that existed in the Gaines Forest either avoided them in advance or were chopped into minced meat by the heavy iron hoof. The humans who had been wantonly plundered and captured by them had long since become different. Great Expedition. First stage. Head to the northern border of Italos, about 600 kilometers away from the Holy City, an important city of the original humans, Milan, to carry out the attack and capture. Chapter 799. 5 days ago. Outside the city, Stuart Manor. Han Dong had just completed all the orders for the resurrection potion from the machinery faith today. Using the remaining time, he had to carry out the necessary moving process. Although Stuart Manor also belonged to Han Dong, it was essentially a small title deed, and could not be moved with the title deed, nor could it follow Han Dong on the expedition. Similarly, Port Ostia, which he had just taken over not long ago, was also not part of the title deed. Only Scarlet Manor could move with Han Dong. Therefore, before the expedition began, the necessary forces, experimental equipment, and various resources had to be moved to Scarlet Manor. At the same time, strict zoning and rules had to be established to prevent different types of life forms from squeezing into the small manor and causing conflict. It was about what to bring and what to prepare. Han Dong had long made a list and handed it all to the doctor. Now, Dr. Swollen had completely become Han Dong's most trusted and closest assistant. Other than the two of them, appreciating each other in scientific research, the doctor's potential was also the highest in the manor. After all, the doctor had once found the ghoul gear from the old king in the ruins of the Stuart Manor after the incident with the old king. It was perfectly embedded into the brain. After handing over the task, Dr. Swollen did some calculations in his brain and ensured that he could complete the moving within 3 days. Han Dong returned to the city because he had some matters to deal with. Han Dong was not too sure how the doctor had done. After all, the storage and release of the mobile title deed was limited. Han Dong did not dare to use the moving title deed in the holy city that was full of prophets, preceptors, and writers. Not to mention using it, even the slightest touch could cause a strange aura to leak out and be discovered. He only dared to store it in the depths of his brain. Perspective cut. When Han Dong followed the expeditionary army and stepped out of the holy city and out of the supervision, he used the concealment effect of the crow carriage. A piece of parchment emitting the smell of blood was held in Han Dong's hand. On the surface of the parchment, ancient and distorted words were written with blood. These words were high and could not be looked at directly. At the bottom right corner of the parchment, there was a yellow seal. "I'm going to Scarlet Manor." Han Dong was immediately sucked into the back of his left hand as he placed the deed on the back of his left hand. The parchment floating in the air was immediately grabbed by the second holder, Demps, and stuffed into the slit of his sleeve through his 6th finger. Space compression. In the blink of an eye, Han Dong was already on the path of the garden. The Scarlet Manor, which was originally simply divided into front and back gardens and mansions, was now divided into 3 areas. 1. The front garden and the mansion remain unchanged. A large number of dead trees and treehouses were planted in the garden area to serve as the Crowman's habitat. Some of the high-quality blood descendants and barren rank hybrid demons were left in the mansion. At the same time, a cemetery was specially set up in the front garden to accommodate a general that Han Dong had just recruited, Corpse Keeper. The back garden was transformed into a lake filled with seawater. At the same time, some simple buildings were built in the lake. The bottom of the lake was covered with strangely shaped conches. The fishermen selected by the port city lived here. This group of existences related to the deep sea, in Han Dong's opinion, might be of use at some point in time. 3. The underground area was transformed into an underground laboratory similar to the one in Stuart Manor by Dr. Swollen. However, the scale of the laboratory was relatively small, and only the necessary facilities were moved in. More of the space was designed as a nest. This design was just enough to let the population of the Scarlet Manor reach the saturation point, and he was quite satisfied with the doctor's work. However, there was still one thing to be confirmed. As Han Dong stepped into the manor, Dr. Swollen in a white robe with a half-open skull and an antenna structure on the surface of his brain quickly came to the surface through the manor's passageway that was similar to the structure of the intestines. Because of the breakthrough to mature hybrid demon, the doctor's taste had also changed. The strange clothes and the design of the brain's head were unpredictable. Doctor, the manor's transfer was done very well. Thank you for the praise, sir. By the way, the anti-pressure potion that Sir ordered has been brought over. Do you need to inspect the goods? Just bring it over. As long as the quantity is guaranteed, there are no other problems. There won't be a large-scale conflict in the early stages of the expedition. Doctor, you can continue to do some stability research. Yes. Sir, please allow me to take you to visit the cave. Okay, it took about an hour. Han Dong left the manor's space with a satisfied smile and returned to the carriage. Demps also put his hand on his shoulder and joked with a smile. It seems that Lord Nicholas is very confident about this expedition. I'm not confident, I just did a good job in this aspect. The manor has been arranged. Once there is a suitable opportunity, I will start the land deed war. At that time, I will definitely give you a wage. As for the land deed war, Han Dong also talked to the team in advance and asked for absolute confidentiality. The members of the team who were very specific would definitely play a key role in the land deed war. This was also the reason why Han Dong led everyone to join the expedition. Compared to other lords, Han Dong had two advantages here. 1. The hybrid demons did not have biotechnology. 2. The human combat power from the Holy City. Speaking of which, where are we now? We are about to leave the northern border of Gwyn Forest and get ready to cross the Aragad Mountains. That's fast. Well, Gwyn Forest is basically not dangerous. If we hurry, we can reduce the time we are exposed to the eternal night. By the way, do you have any information about the first stage of the expedition, Minano? Abel shook his head and said at the same time, even a top prophet like Mr. Black and White would not be able to obtain information in advance in an area 600 kilometers away. However, since it is designated as the first stage of the expedition, it must be recorded on the hybrid demon slate. Nicholas, aren't you in charge of the research of the slate? I'm just a beginner in deciphering the slate. I really don't know. At this moment, Dempus pushed up his spectacles and added, That's right. Minano is the former second city of Italos, and it is also the city chosen by God where the Gate of Destiny appeared. Such an important area must correspond to a high-level land deed and the hybrid demon recorded on the subsidiary slate. Mythical hybrid demon. Mythical hybrid demon? Han Dong spent all his time on learning dark magic, manor matters, scientific research, and building relationship. He did not seriously read any books about the hybrid demon. Of course, there were only a few records about the mythical hybrid demon in Forbidden Book. Even if it was described in the simplest human language, the author or the viewer would fall into a state of extreme panic. It was like a primitive savage who saw a footprint in the forest. It was a footprint of a huge beast with sharp claws that he had never seen before. It scared him so much that he did not dare to continue walking in the forest. Chapter 800. Listening to the words, mythical body. Abel and Mia, who were following the carriage, broke out in a cold sweat at the same time. And from Han Dong's expression, there was only curiosity. He quickly touched Dempsey's side waist with his elbow. Explain. By the way, tell us the details of the classification of hybrid demons. Nicholas, you are the first person to break the seed of a mature hybrid demon since the establishment of the Holy City. You still have Count's consciousness, but you don't even know this kind of information? Demps, you are very clear about this kind of scientific knowledge. I don't need to waste time reading books. In Han Dong's eyes, the two most important functions of Demps were borrowing money and teaching science. Okay, although the rest of the team also had a certain understanding of the classification of hybrid demons, but they still didn't know how to advance and what kind of changes happened. Cough cough, Demps cleared his throat before starting the lecture. Everyone also subconsciously stretched their heads forward and listened carefully to Mr. Deng's lecture. Even Scarlet Count in Han Dong's body was excitedly connected to Han Dong's hearing and listened to the lecture together, because Count could smell the scent of a king from Demps. The highest level of hybrid demon that everyone has encountered so far is the mature demon. Simply put, the mature demon is the second stage of the hybrid demon. The change from newborn to mature is still relatively big. Mature abilities and perfect consciousness. A fully mature hybrid demon can get a good position under the Old King. A special existence like Scarlet Count even got the first signature of the moving deed. Every mature hybrid demon had a specific title and name. When facing them, even a gold rank Knight Squad could be completely annihilated. Everyone is very clear about this point, so I won't say more. The next stage is the really important stage. The difficulty of a mature hybrid demon to reach the next stage is almost 3 times that of a newborn to mature, or even more. I believe that Scarlet Count has also been stuck at the mature stage for a long time. Nicholas, this guy is quite interesting. Let me out. I want to be part of the discussion. Caw caw caw, the flesh on his arm exploded, and a terrifying blood dog appeared in the carriage. As the dog's mouth completely split open, Scarlet Count's head slowly peeked out from the inside. I'm here to listen as well. Please continue. Indeed, I've been trapped in the mature body stage for a long time. Even though I've obtained high-purity blood wine from the blood god, I still have no clue about atavism. Only I, who had rebellious thoughts after being pierced by the holy sword, managed to get a glimpse of the truth of atavism because I established many close connections with other forces in private. The accumulation of knowledge and contact with many king-level existences allowed me to see some of the truth of atavism. As for the appearance of the Count's head, everyone quickly got used to it. Demps adjusted the bronze mirror slightly, lowered his voice, and continued his lecture. In theory, the mature body is an individual with a fully developed body, soul, and ability system. It can even be described as perfect. However, such a posture is far from being close to the truth, not enough to touch the unreachable other side of the starry sky, not enough to peek into the true abyss. It is just trapped in a narrow perfection. If you want to reach the next level, you must give up. Give up the world rules that are fixed in the head, give up the self-awareness established since childhood, give up the solidified form and body. Touch the truth in an extremely distorted and unreasonable posture. Only such a hybrid demon can reach the next stage. That is the atavism body. Atavism. Han Dong's understanding of this term was still at the biological level. Well, return to the indescribable, undefined, and indescribable ancestral posture. This, listening to Dempsey's lecture, Count himself was the one who had the deepest understanding. After all, this was what he used to pursue. He still remembered that one time, when Count was in a state of enlightenment, he found that his body in the mirror showed an atavism posture of limbs and flesh. But this state only lasted for a short period of time before it could not be found again. Demps asked softly, Count, have you had a similar atavism feeling before? Yes, but I couldn't catch it. If you catch it, we are dead. After all, the atavism body, hybrid demon, is something that even elite knights are afraid of. Ordinary knights like us will die with just a touch. The atavism body's ability has touched the system of rules to a certain extent. It is very difficult to deal with them through conventional combat experience, and it is even more difficult to kill them through conventional means of death. Atavism. Ha! At this time, Count also laughed wildly and began to talk about some of his experiences as a blood descendant. The hybrid demons under the blood god's command seemed to be stronger than their peers because of the nourishment of the blood wine. In fact, everyone is sealed by the inherent product of the blood wine. Compared to other hybrid demons, it is more difficult to achieve atavism. Of course, there are also some hybrid demons that can achieve atavism at the level of the blood wine, but in this way they will never be able to break free from the shackles of the blood god. No matter how strong they become, they will still be pigs under the whips of pigs. Dempus gestured for the Count to pay attention to the lesson as he continued. Let's stop talking about the atavism body for now. If the fully atavistic hybrid demons go one step further, or touch the brilliance of the other side of the universe with their thoughts, or use their bodies to copy the truth inscriptions in the forbidden abyss, at this time, the atavism person will officially step into the next level. That is, the mythical body, hybrid demons, that we need to face in the first stage of the Great Expedition. Together with the land deed in their hands, it is enough to fight head-on with the leaders. Of course, the siege is definitely not as simple as you defend and I attack. If it involves the mythical body, it will inevitably involve the old king behind it. Let's see how these leaders deal with the siege. In this way, Dempsey's lecture in the carriage lasted for a few hours. During this time, everything was normal. The army that crossed the Gain Forest also slowed down the speed of their migration. It took a whole day to cross the entire Aragad mountain range from the relatively flat mountain road to the real outside world. Most of the knights opened the curtains out of curiosity, wanting to see what the world where the human ancestors lived hundreds of years ago was like. However, what was displayed in front of them was only a completely depraved, corrupt world. It was also at this time. The clockwork of the entire expeditionary army was forcibly turned on, and the voice of the great demon leader came from inside. We are about to reach the secondary important city, Perugia. We will launch an experimental siege. It is estimated that 500 knights will be deployed to attack from the front. Chapter 801. When the great demon commander gave the expeditionary army the goal of their first battle. Inside the crow carriage, Count, who was born in the mouth of the blood dog, suddenly trembled. Scarlet Count knew the situation of the secondary important city, Perugia, better than anyone else because he had been there for a period of time. Once, Count tried to expand his personal network and accidentally contacted the president of the Writers' Association in the Holy City. The Scarlet Count, who had traveled tens of thousands of miles to the Aragad Mountains, also passed by Perugia, a city full of artistic aura. The old king behind Perugia city and the old king behind the Count weren't on opposing side. Count, who carried the mobile land deed, was warmly received by the Lord of Perugia at the beginning because of his identity as a lord. Count, who had consumed a lot of energy on the journey, also planned to stay in Perugia for a while and try to expand his network to establish contact with the old king here. However, he lived in Perugia for less than 2 days. Count abandoned all the ideas that he had formed in advance, found an excuse, and fled the city overnight. Even after entering the Aragad Mountains, he was still worried. He set up a large number of bloodline scouts along the way to ensure that there were no monsters chasing after him from Perugia. It was not until Count arrived at the other end of the Aragad Mountains and placed the land deed and fully opened the Scarlet Mountain Villa that he was completely relieved. Once he thought of the time when he lived in Perugia, he still felt a little scared. You humans really know how to choose a place to attack. This city is very strange. Even I, Count, don't dare to enter easily. Not to mention anything else. I've privately established relationships with 5 different factions of the Old King, including the Deep Sea of Dreams. Even so, in the 2 days I lived in Perugia, it was like staying on the edge of madness for 2 years. This city corresponds to the medium land deed, and the owner is the atavistic body, hybrid demon, you just mentioned, and it is a guy who can make me feel very uncomfortable. Count, who had the crazy laughter characteristic, was inclined to madness. The existence that could make Count feel uncomfortable, crazy, and afraid immediately attracted Han Dong's attention. He continued to ask, "Oh? You're even scared of Count?" "Bah! Did I just use the word scared? It's just that the level of the atavistic body is higher than mine. Besides, I'm in someone else's territory, so it's natural for me to feel uncomfortable." "Count, can you briefly explain the characteristics of this Lord of Perugia? If it's suitable, we can also choose to fight. After all, a medium title deed is pretty good. Don't think of the land deed war so simply, okay? The only reason this Earl lost to you was because you cheated, brat. Of course, it's also because I haven't been able to comprehend the atavistic posture. Otherwise, all of you would have died long ago. Kid, your ability, this Count has seen it all. You want to use a one-sided battle to defeat the Lord of this city. This Count doesn't want to die with you. I'm just looking at the situation. There's a high probability that I won't start a land contract war. Count, hurry up and share the information. If the opponent is really difficult, we won't participate in this matter. It's good to stay in the army and be a bystander." It's not that Count doesn't want to say it, but he simply doesn't want to recall that experience. Since you have a request, this Count will generously tell you. Squeak, from the depths of the dog's mouth, several twisted blood-colored tentacles grew out and weaved into two arms, so that Count can more vividly explain his impression of the city of Perugia. The Lord of Perugia has a special name, the Painter. Although I don't know how he was formed, whether he was the son of the old king or evolved from evil and wild monsters. I personally am more inclined to the evolution of the human race. Even if he has completed the atavistic transformation, to some extent, he is more inclined to the human race. He himself is very interested in the art and culture left behind by the human race. Perugia also retains more than 90% of the original human buildings. The Painter transformed the Perugia Academy of Fine Arts into his unique lord's castle. The interior is full of his highest-rated local artworks, as well as his own crazy works. During the 2 days I stayed in Perugia, I lived in this palace. At first, I felt good about the Lord's hospitality, but after an hour, I began to feel that something was wrong. Even if I drink blood to stay awake, I will still be affected by that strange influence. Mental influence. Han Dong was surprised. He didn't think that Count would be affected by mental influence. Although Count doesn't want to admit it, that feeling made Count feel a rare fear. Well, it's a kind of mental erosion that I have never felt before. It's different from the mental tide that comes from the deep sea. The crazy paintings I saw in the castle of Perugia will uncontrollably appear in my mind when I close my eyes. Between the paintings, a group of rats will come out and crazily gnaw on my brain. The blasphemous voices of the rats lingered in my mind, and I couldn't get rid of them. Even drinking high-purity blood can only temporarily suppress it for a period of time. After 2 days, I even feel that my head has become a blasphemous rat nest with tens of thousands of rats living in it. My mental state is also worn down to the bottom. At the worst, several rats directly squeezed out of my nose and mouth. At this time, the city scenery I see is completely different from when I first entered the city. Even the atavistic body, under the blood god's command, has never made me feel such a huge pressure. Count made exaggerated gestures while describing his terrifying experience. It was enough to hear how heavy the shadow in Count's heart was in the city of Perugia. This lord who lived in seclusion in the city was obviously difficult to deal with. Paintings, these things that couldn't be explained with common sense made everyone's scalp tingle. They even felt that there was a squeak sound in their heads. However, Han Dong, on the other hand, showed a strange interest after hearing the Count's story. The rats in the paintings, Count, You can't even withstand your mad laughter? Although this Count's mad laughter is not as perfect as your current mad laughter, it is still a relatively perfect mental ability. If it was a one-on-one situation, I would definitely be able to withstand it. However, at that time, I was in someone else's castle with the effect of the land deed. In a passive situation, plus the gap between me and this lord, it is normal that I can't withstand it. Interesting, I planned to sign up for the battle. While Han Dong made the decision, he looked at the other members of the team. This kind of strange mental atavistic body hybrid demon is not suitable for you to deal with. Everyone stay in the carriage and rest. Well, husband, you have to be careful. Mia was the first to be scared. Abel and Wen Li, who were inclined towards combat, naturally didn't have the confidence to deal with this kind of existence. If they were mentally invaded, it would drag the entire legion down. Demps adjusted the gears of the monolithic bronze mirror and said with a smile, "Nicholas, I will go with you." Chapter 802. Experimental Siege Battle, Target. Capture Perugia City, one of the most important cities of the original humans. Currently corresponding to a medium-sized land deed, Perugia was also the capital of the same province and the capital of Umbria. It was a famous cultural city with a long history. It was located at the top of a mountain about 500 meters above sea level. The scenery was beautiful. Facing the Tiber Valley and Lake Trasimeno, it was easy to defend and difficult to attack. Its strategic position was very important. For more than 200 years, the steam train tracks and transportation stations were built at the foot of the mountain, so the ancient city of Perugia at the top of the mountain was well protected. The winding streets and roads and the rising ancient city buildings were a major feature of Perugia City. Deployment of troops: 1. Siege Commander, 1 Corporal Knight. 2. Siege Knights, about 500, including Special Forces. Voluntary registration. There is no limit to the number of participants. At that time, the Eye of Expedition will be used to conduct preliminary investigation of the target city. According to the comprehensive information of Perugia City, the most suitable siege army will be selected. Reward. The knights who win the siege battle will be awarded a third-class ribbon and have priority in obtaining supplies and treatment in the following expedition. We will arrive at Perugia City in 2 hours. Knights who volunteer to participate in the siege, please gather in the Demon King's castle in 10 minutes. For a time, the expedition army's formation changed to a certain extent. About 700 knights signed up to participate in the first siege battle of the Great Expedition. Inside the Demon King's castle, a demon perception officer in charge of communication was reporting the information to the Great Demon Commander. Commander, when using the Eye of Expedition to spy on Perugia City, there was a strong mental backlash, causing 5 perception officers to fall into a deep state of corruption. They are currently being sent to the mobile sanctuary for treatment. The information obtained from the spying did not meet expectations. A large number of original human buildings were preserved in the city. The mental corruption in the city was extremely high. The hybrid demons entrenched in the city also showed a high degree of chaos. The possibility of a large number of overlapping spaces in the ancient buildings could not be ruled out. At the same time, the keyword rats was also obtained. No information about the Lord could be found. After analyzing the chaotic attribute, there is a high probability that the Lord behind this city corresponds to the old Upper King. Commander, do we need to send the Evernight Wolves to conduct a super-fast close-up investigation? A chaotic city with mental corruption? The wolves don't have enough mental defenses, so it'll be dangerous for them to investigate. Then, should we give up on the siege plan? Change the route and choose to take a detour? After all, the old king corresponding to this city is not the ultimate goal of this great expedition. Why would he give up such a good opportunity? Since this city corresponded to the upper Old King, as long as they followed the rules, the possibility of the Old King personally descending would be reduced to zero. Only some lower Old Kings liked to meddle in other people's business. How many knights signed up for the siege? Is everyone here? A total of 782 people, all gathered in the hall. Directly activate the magic crystals in the castle and create a strong thought storm. The knights who could withstand the attacks would be allowed to participate in the siege. At the same time, let as many combat nuns as possible to participate in the battle. I'd like to see how capable these hybrid demon killers are. Yes. For a moment, as the main building material of the castle, the magic crystals lit up with a purple luster. Demps immediately reminded Han Dong beside him. The thought storm is coming. It seems that the great demon commander has already seen through the characteristics of Perugia City. For a moment, the thought storm produced by magic elements swept through the brains of every knight present. A group of knights fainted on the ground. The magic element storm would not cause any negative effects to individuals, and the fainting was only temporary. On the contrary, it could replenish enough energy for individuals. On Han Dong's side, his spirit was not affected at all. He just pretended to be affected and supported himself with one hand. After all, some of the knights present were in the same position. If they performed too well and were assigned a special mission, it would be troublesome. Han Dong just wanted to be a quiet salted fish in the siege. Just as you felt the thought storm. Perugia City is a hybrid demon city that mainly relies on mental corruption. Only those who pass the mental defense are qualified to participate in this siege. Congratulations on successfully being selected as the vanguard of this experimental siege. This siege will be led by my Knights of Misfortune, the third captain, Arthur Demonized, as the siege commander. Your core goal is to, under the leadership of Arthur, start a war against the hybrid demons that occupy the city. Defeat all the hybrid demons entrenched in the city, cut off the Lord's head, and seize the title deed. Yes, sir. The commander, Arthur Demonized, knelt on one knee at the front. He had almost the same demonic skin as the great demon commander. However, his white skin was covered with a large amount of impurities, in the form of black veins and stripes on the surface of his skin. His physique was larger, and the outline of his muscles was more obvious. Normally, he would invest almost all his destiny points into demonic substances in pursuit of endless demonic power. However, under the seemingly manic muscles, there was a rather meticulous heart. He was highly valued by the great demon commander. The great demon commander stared at the knights kneeling in the main hall. His gaze lingered on Demps for a long time. Then he continued, "The reason why the experimental prefix is added to this siege. It is because we need to use a frontal attack to evaluate the probability of the Old King's descent and determine some of the world rules that exist among the hybrid demons. According to the joint divination of several of the highest-ranking prophets in the Holy City, as well as the information collected from past expeditions, after the hybrid demons occupied the world, a world rule was drawn up. All the hybrid demons, including the king, must follow this rule. As living beings, we are also included in this rule. As long as we follow the rule and launch a siege, the old king behind the scenes will not be able to interfere personally. I have already told Arthur the specific method in advance. I believe that some of you have rich experience and have participated in medium-sized expeditions before, so you know what the rules are. I wish you a triumphant return." An hour and a half passed. The ancient city in the mountains, shrouded in thick gray fog, slowly came into view of the expeditionary army. Great Demon Commander, a spiritual type hybrid demon messenger, has appeared at the foot of the mountain. It is trying to connect to the Eye of Expedition you to negotiate with us. Let it connect directly to the Demon King's castle. Squeak, squeak, squeak for a moment. The sound of rats hissing rang in the castle hall. A hybrid demon shrouded in a gray robe appeared in the middle of the hall with a swarm of rats running around under its body. Chapter 803. Although the Great Expedition was the first large-scale, long-distance expedition of humans with the goal of the Old King as the goal. However, as early as 100 years ago, the main purpose of the expedition was to obtain information on the hybrid demons, seize the chaotic treasures, and the hybrid demon slate. The knights had also launched many attacks on the land deed territory. But they had never met the emissary of the hybrid demons, and he actually requested to negotiate with the human side before the war. Squeak, 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 squeak. The emissary at the bottom of the mountain of Perugia mixed his spiritual body into the sound of the flute by playing the bamboo flute. Then, using the eye of expedition as the center of perception, he directly sent his spiritual body into the Demon King's castle. The knights gathered in the hall all put on earplugs and goggles immediately and quickly dispersed. Mature hybrid demon, the aura emitted was slightly weaker than Scarlet Count, but the danger was not low at all. World rules. Such an emissary absolutely could not be killed. Breaking the rules was very likely to lead to the arrival of the Old King. The Holy City was not ready for a decisive battle with the Old King. The great demon captain had already called the interpreter from the secret word knights to his side. Who knew? When the flute stopped playing, the emissary lifted his hood. A handsome, human face was revealed. The face was engraved with black abstract style of a group of rats. He held the flute with one hand in front of his chest. His left foot was behind his right foot. He bowed politely to the great demon captain on the throne. Immediately after, the words that came out of the messenger's mouth were actually quite standard Italian. I, Truman Zorro, welcome your arrival on behalf of the Lord. I know you came all the way to Perugia with the intention of attacking the city. We are also willing to accept a reasonable siege battle. However, before signing the siege battle, I have a better proposal here. I wonder if this powerful human general is willing to listen? Form, speech, and behavior. The characteristics conveyed by this hybrid demon were almost no different from that of a human. Most of the knights present also showed a surprised expression. It was the first time they had encountered such a situation. In the knowledge of most of the knights, the hybrid demons regarded humans as an inferior race. They disdained to learn human language and preserve human culture. Tell me about your proposal. During this period of time, the city center of Perugia is hosting an annual art festival. The feudal lord had a strong interest in human art and culture. He had always wanted to engage in in-depth academic discussions with humans who possessed artistic knowledge. If there are any humans here who have high attainments in the field of art, please follow me to the city center. The feudal lord will treat you to a banquet of the highest level. If he can satisfy the lord's demand for art, he is willing to make some concessions on the signing of the siege strategy. With that, Zorro took out a parchment with the rat's seal. The hybrid demon language written on the parchment clearly stated, as long as the expeditionary army was willing to send humans with artistic knowledge to participate in Perugia's art festival, the humans would be allowed to add an additional ordinary rule when signing the siege strategy. Furthermore, the organizers of the art festival will ensure the safety of the human participants. On the surface, such a proposal was acceptable. Not only would it increase the odds of success in the siege, but it would also allow a group of people to enter Perugia in advance and obtain information about the city. When he heard this, Count in Han Dong's body had already begun to speak crazily. It's the same trick. When this count went to Perugia in the past, these rats also said the same thing. You can't agree. These guys will use all kinds of art to plant seeds of madness in your brain. Even this count couldn't resist the mental attack, so how many of you knights can resist it? Don't get excited. I feel that the art festival is pretty good. When Han Dong heard the contents of the parchment, he was immediately interested. If the world law existed, then these hybrid demons would follow the rules. As long as the participants didn't die, Han Dong would be able to participate without worry. Don't. Didn't you say that you were going to be a salted fish in the siege? This count doesn't want to go to that madman's castle alone again. Don't panic. Even if you really want to go, it won't be just you, Count. There's also me and little brother Dem. Let's see what the Great Demon Captain thinks first. If the Great Demon Captain rejects this suggestion and directly starts a war, then it's fine. I really just want to be a salted fish. Just as the Great Demon Captain was examining the parchment in his hand, the messenger Zoro continued to speak. Please consider carefully. I will be waiting for your arrival at the bottom of the mountain in Perugia. If you refuse to participate in the art festival and directly start a siege, the Overlord will also agree. However, I hope that you can cherish this opportunity. It's really rare to see someone like the Overlord that respects humans. Perhaps it can even provide you with information for your subsequent journey. After saying this, accompanied by a clear and elegant sound of a flute, the messenger's spiritual body slowly dissipated. Such a cunning style, it really fits the image of a rat. They are trying to use the name of art to lure our people into their territory and use the method of mental corrosion to thoroughly corrupt individuals. They will spread a seed of influence to our thoughts and disrupt our army from the inside. At the same time, they will obtain internal information from our army. Even if they fail in the siege, they will only lose a medium-sized land deed. However, they will obtain the information that we humans have prepared for hundreds of years. Prepare to directly start a siege. Demps, do you have anything you want to say? At this moment, Demps stepped forward. Great Demon Captain, I think that we can try to accept the other party's suggestion. If we can handle it properly, it will greatly reduce the casualties of the siege, and we can also obtain some crucial information. If other knights said this, they would be immediately scolded by the Great Demon Captain. However, Demps was different. In the years since he joined the Knights of Misfortune, Demps had been secretly training under the Great Demon Captain. The Great Demon Captain's trust in Demps was even higher than his captain. Oh, you have 100% confidence that you won't be affected by the atavistic body's mental corrosion when you go deep into the land deed? I can't guarantee, but my friend can. After saying this, Demps smiled and reached out to pat Han Dong, who only wanted to be a salted fish. Chapter 804. Warren Nicholas. Although Han Dong's performance in the last night's conference was the most dazzling, even overshadowing the glory of the first place in the previous night's conference, but in the eyes of the Great Demon Captain, Han Dong's value was not as good as Demps. However, the Great Demon Captain was very clear about one of Han Dong's major characteristics. Since the establishment of the Holy City, there were only 2 residents with such characteristic. One of them was the existence that the Great Demon Captain was most afraid of. In terms of strength, the Great Demon Captain was not afraid of anyone in the Holy City, but he was quite afraid of one person, a Harrison Hugo. Perhaps because he had stayed outside the city for a long time, or perhaps he had a unique demonic physique. With his personal vision, the Great Demon could see images that others could not see from Captain Hugo's body, an indescribable phenomenon that could cause a trace of fear in the Great Demon Captain's heart. And this newly emerged Nicholas had a similar characteristic as Hugo: immunity to pollution. The opponent has a mental attack that can backfire on an eye of expedition. It's not just the problem of pollution, all kinds of spiritual suggestion, thought invasion, and hidden seeding methods exist, and it's not something that ordinary knights can resist. Even if you are not polluted, there is still the possibility of being controlled. Moreover, the lord of this city must be a atavistic body, hybrid demon. This kind of existence is not something you can deal with. However, Since it's your suggestion, Demps, I believe you can give a reasonable explanation. There's no need for me to explain. Great Demon Captain, please use Nicholas as your target, and trigger a atavistic body. Level of thought storm to verify. What the hell? Han Dong was so excited that he spoke out his native language, but because it was a mix of dialects, the others could not understand. He quickly changed to fluent English. Hey, Demps, I didn't say I wanted to go. Who knew? Demps only used a seemingly simple and clear look to signal Han Dong. The latter could not understand the meaning of this look at all. Okay, the rest of you, step aside. The Great Demon Captain also agreed to this suggestion. He straightened his white arm, pointing to Han Dong, who looked confused and seemed to want to explain something. Buzz buzz buzz. The power of the magic crystal gathered at his fingertips and shot towards Han Dong's head. Most people did not think that Han Dong, a young knight who had just graduated a year ago, could withstand such a storm of thoughts. Han Dong, who looked like a salted fish, stood steadily under the blast of the storm of thoughts. He even put on a scornful smile. Of course, Han Dong did not deliberately show this kind of smile. Instead, it was a facial effect that came with the insane laughter attribute when one's thoughts were affected. Black liquid seeped out of the pores at the corners of his mouth, forming an exaggerated black smiley face. Ah! When the crazy laughter came out, it dispelled the storm of thoughts in his head. Interesting. In that case, I'll allow the two of you to go to the central street of Perugia as artists and participate in the Lord's Art Festival. However, there were still risks in this operation. You must have an elite knight to bring you in. At the same time, there was also a holy knight who could provide holy purification. After all, only Nicholas had the pollution immunity. Physique, the others still had the possibility of being contaminated. Among the knights attacking the city, is anyone willing to participate? The Great Demon Captain made this arrangement only because he considered Demps's safety. The Demon King's Hall was silent. In anyone's eyes, they knew that the art festival was a conspiracy, but they still wanted to go. Although these two young knights were quite special, they were going to go deep into the fallen city ruled by the atavistic demons. The so-called world rules were also set by the hybrid demons. Killing one or two humans might not be a problem. Even if they could escape, if they were deeply contaminated, they would be abandoned by the expeditionary forces and fend for themselves in the world outside the city. Since there's no one, I'll arrange it. At this moment, it was so silent that even the Great Demon Captain did not smell it at the first moment. A knight who did not emit any breath and looked like a puppet stood behind Han Dong and Demp. The appearance of this person also made many of the knights present flash a trace of fear in their eyes. On the other hand, the Great Demon Captain showed a satisfied smile, as if with the participation of this knight, the safety of Demps could be guaranteed to a large extent. Secret Whisper Knights, Commander of the Puppet Guards, Charlie LeBlanc Bermanchev is willing to participate in this operation. Senior Charlie. Charlie also looked very helpless. I said that I would return the favor during the great expedition, but you really know how to find trouble. From Charlie's eyes, it could be seen that even he could not guarantee the absolute safety of this operation. At the same time, another holy knight who emitted a holy aura walked out from the crowd. She could provide purification while moving. Staring at the blonde female knight who emitted a strong holy aura, the Great Demon Captain also gave a very satisfied evaluation. Combat Nun. Quite a good combination, can provide purification and combat assistance. Not bad. This infiltration operation is named Art Exchange. The four of you prepare to take a high-speed carriage to the foot of the mountain of Perugia City in half an hour and meet with the hybrid demon messenger. If you can complete the art exchange without being affected by the mind and obtain detailed information about Perugia City and the Lord, you will be awarded a silver ribbon. Yes, The last combat none to join the team was also Han Dong's acquaintance, Wino Celeste. When the four of them left the Demon King's castle, Wino reached out and pinched Han Dong's right cheek. "You always like to cause trouble. I really don't want to accompany you to die." "Sister Wino, it has nothing to do with me." Han Dong, who looked like a salted fish, even wanted to run back and tell the great demon captain that he did not want to do it anymore. Moreover, the Scarlet Count also caused a ruckus in Han Dong's body. All kinds of negative words were constantly coming out. For example, "If you want to die, why do you have to drag this count to die with you? This count wants to see your regret when the time comes. I bet with your characteristics, you will definitely be executed at the end, or be made into a human art piece." The culprit of all this was Demps, who was standing beside Han Dong with a smile on his face. He blocked out the almost decadent count in his mind. When he stepped out of the Demon King's castle, Han Dong lightly punched Demp's arm. "Hey, why don't you hurry up and explain?" Demps held his arm and made a painful expression. "Ouch! I did it for you. For me. Don't tell me that when we were near Perugia City, your brain did not have any reaction." What reaction? Chapter 805. There's no reaction in your head? There's really no reaction. Demps, what are you doing? The conversation that followed was about privacy. Demps hugged Han Dong with one arm and pulled him to a dark corner in the outer corridor of the Demon King's castle. "Based on my speculation, your head should be connected to the old Upper King on the back of Perugia City." "What?" "It's not entirely my personal speculation. There's also the information provided by Mother." "Who is it?" "This old king is a bit special. You can't call him by his name, nor can you call him by his code name. As long as there's a life form that wants to use symbols to express him, it's possible to invite the abyss. However, information related to this existence will definitely be answered in Perugia. After all, this is the coverage of the medium land deed under his command. Demps, you also have your own purpose, right?" Dempus pushed up his spectacles and said with a deep expression, "That's right. If you can become stronger, it can also increase the overall survival rate of our team. Moreover, Nicholas, you also want to use the opportunity of the Great Expedition to figure out the secrets on your body, right? Don't worry, this is the Great Expedition, not an ordinary mission. I won't joke with my life. Even if the entire army is defeated, you and I can't die here. You and I, plus Knight Charlie whose strength is unknown, and an orthodox combat none can at least ensure the basic safety." Smack! Han Dong slapped Demps's back heavily. "If it's that simple, I would have made the decision a long time ago. The reason why I didn't stand up and mention this to the Demon King was because the risk assessment hasn't been completed yet. Moreover, the count in my body has been causing a ruckus. Perugia has left a huge psychological shadow on him. Let's go." When the expedition army was 5 kilometers away from Perugia, a high-powered steam carriage rushed out alone at twice the speed of the marching army. Inside the carriage was the 4-person team that had just been formed. Considering that they would be going to the city center as guests to participate in the art festival held by the hybrid demons, the 4 of them put away their power armors and changed into clothes that fit the guests. Knight Charlie, who was the strongest in the carriage, had the weakest aura. Coupled with Knight Charlie's relatively thin body and Mediterranean hairstyle, he looked like a weakling. Nicholas, since the infiltration plan was set up with you as the center, you should be the center. I'll leave the command of the team to you. I'm only responsible for ensuring your safety, and will try my best not to interfere with the progress of the incident." "All right." Han Dong's favorite kind of knight was a very casual but powerful elite knight like Charlie. After all, not only did he have to participate in the art festival and deal with all kinds of mental pollution lurking in the dark, Han Dong also had to unearth the secrets hidden in the city during the art festival. Wino. What happened? Wino Celeste seemed to be the one with the most combat characteristics in the team. Moreover, the divine aura emanated from her body would definitely be rejected and targeted by the fiend. For the next infiltration operation, you need to pretend to be my wife. What? Wino, who was born as a nun, had undergone a lifelong vow ceremony in the monastery. Marriage was absolutely forbidden. Moreover, as a combat nun, she had to maintain her chastity. It's just a disguise, after all, the divine aura in your body is too strong. No matter how much you suppress your aura, it will still be sensed by the fiends in the fallen city. The only way is to stay by our side throughout the entire process. I'll help you further conceal your aura to avoid unnecessary trouble. In addition, if you stay with me at all times, I can also ensure that your mind will not be affected. The potential risks in this fallen city are higher than what the expeditionary army estimated. Wino still looked a little embarrassed. We combat nuns are also protected by the holy light in our spiritual consciousness. There shouldn't be a problem. Han Dong crossed his hands in front of him and said solemnly, "The mental corruption in this city is enough to make a mature fiend go crazy. Do you understand what I mean?" Wino stared at Han Dong, who was abnormally serious, and even had a somewhat frightening expression. She couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. "Yes, I understand." They arrived at the bottom of the mountain entrance of Perugia City. Han Dong held Wino's hand in a gentlemanly manner. Although Wino was not very comfortable at first, she quickly got into character under Han Dong's careful guidance. Demps and Knight Charlie walked side by side at the back. What came into view was an ancient city in the mountains shrouded in gray clouds. The buildings and streets built against the mountains were arranged from bottom to top. Although the entire city in the mountains exuded a heavy sense of degeneration, the basic architectural style of the city was still more human. The Lord here did not make too many changes to Perugia City. It was very likely that he had preserved the original architectural style and local culture. To a certain extent, he did have a respectful attitude toward human culture. The bamboo flute messenger, Truman Zorro, was waiting for everyone at the entrance of the street at the bottom. He was also holding some strange white molds and dyes in his hand. "Everyone, before participating in the art festival, please draw a mask to express your inner thoughts and artistic taste. It will be convenient for you to find friends at the art festival." Don't worry, the Lord himself is very respectful of human beings, especially human artists. You don't have to worry about your safety at all. If any resident dares to hurt you, they will incur the wrath of the Lord. Okay. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Han Dong and his teammates also made their own artistic mask. In his previous world, there was a movie that had a deep impact on Han Dong. When talking about masks, he thought of the guy mask in V for Vendetta. This mask also contained a special meaning. The mask made by Demps was called face cover. 4 different palms covered the mask to seal the facial features. Charlie used ingenious handiwork and coloring skills to polish the mask into a solid wood texture. Knight Wino did not know much about art. Under Han Dong's suggestion, she printed the image of a cross. Speaking of which, you are the first batch of normal humans to participate in the art festival. The Lord will be very happy. Next, let's walk up the mountain in the simplest way to adapt to the environment of Perugia City in advance. Although the Lord has preserved the original human buildings, we have lived here for more than 200 years. Some of the characteristics will be different from humans. By walking up the mountain, you will be able to adapt in advance. Don't show any discomfort in front of the Lord. The Lord hopes that you can more naturally accept and appreciate everything here. Chapter 806. The moment they set foot in Perugia City. The feeling was so different that it felt like they had stepped into a different dimension and were completely isolated from the original world. Han Dong, Dempus, and Wino were temporarily unable to adapt to the change. They stopped at the street at the bottom of the mountain for a short period of time. Only Knight Charlie's expression remained the same. It was as if he had participated in a similar siege before and had already adapted to the changes in his senses. Is there such a big difference between a medium land deed and a small land deed? This feeling is almost completely isolated from the outside world. Under the effect of the land deed, Perugia City is completely a sealed area. Count, who was talking crazily in his body, also jumped out and mocked Han Dong. You don't even know this. How can you be a lord? The medium land deed and the small land deed you have are fundamentally different. It's not just a matter of coverage, but more of a space dominion. Why is Count so determined not to come back here? A large part of the reason is the strong restriction of the medium land deed. Back then, I had to consume a life crystal given to me by the blood god in order to escape the restrictions of the title deed. Why didn't you tell me this earlier? How would I know that as the lord of 2 manors and the messenger of 2 old kings, you don't even know the difference between the land deeds? I don't want to talk to you anymore. Since you are already in the city, you should be prepared to face the atavistic body. Let's talk. If you don't understand anything, just ask me. I'll be more careful with my words, but please don't take things too hard and go against the painter. Han Dong shook his head and temporarily closed the communication with Count's consciousness. In fact, during the 1 to 2 years of contact with Count's consciousness, perhaps because of the physical body and the changes in the surrounding environment, some of Count's characteristics were more and more similar to that of a human. This was a good thing for Han Dong. His vision switched back. The moment he set foot in Perugia City, his connection with the outside world was directly cut off. The clockwork device worn on his wrist was limited to 4 people's communication. The gray fog was like silk caressing the city built on the mountain. The staircase streets paved with red bricks were one of the main features of Perugia. Square stone buildings were closely arranged between the roads, and there were many bridges in the air between the buildings. Gray high walls that had been eroded by the wind and dilapidated red tile roofs could be seen everywhere, highlighting the ancient and vicissitudes of the city. However, such a historical city had been reduced to a corrupted city where hybrid demons gathered. The elegant beauty of the ancient city had been replaced by a strange, twisted beauty. The streets at the foot of the mountain were slightly deserted. Occasionally, some gray bodies could be seen piling up randomly between the buildings, drawing some despicable artistic graffiti with the dark body fluids in their bodies. Rats, a foul stench, and strange hisses filled the bottom of the mountain. Envoy Zoro gave a simple explanation of the situation. Please ignore these lowly residents and their artistic creations. Those who live here are the lowest class of Perugia's evildoers. Their existence was only to create raw materials for the upper echelons. Not only are they raw materials for food, but they are also raw materials for inspiration. You can think of the city at the bottom of the mountain as our farm. When the group of people followed the envoy to the mountainside, the number, quality, and taste of the residents had clearly increased. A resident that walked towards them was clearly different in terms of temperament and appearance. His sharp head was wrapped in white cloth, and a scarlet skull without skin structure could be faintly seen. His ruddy body was like a reptile, crawling on the streets through dozens of fleshy tentacles. What was surprising was that such a corrupted hybrid demon was actually wearing a human's gray cloth vest on its upper body. At the same time, it was wearing a kind of pants that was shaped like a tube with patterns on its legs. It was worn on each of its tentacles. The streets at the mountainside were much more spacious. A large number of residents were on both sides of the road, or in the open buildings, creating all kinds of art. They weren't randomly drawing on the buildings, but rather they were creating art with different poses on the drawing board. Some of the hybrid demons only used the most sensitive tentacle in their mouths to sketch the scenery or sketch living creatures on the drawing paper. Some of them used all of their tentacles to create complex oil paintings. Some tested people imitated the arms of humans, and even imitated how humans held a brush to create. During the creation, through the closely arranged buildings and the bridges in the air between the buildings, these hybrid demons would exchange experiences when they lost their inspiration. Or they would entangle their tentacles together. Or they would put one of their heads into the other's mouth. When staring at these works created by the hybrid demons, they would find that these works seemed to be alive. The seemingly normal scenery sketches would become abnormally distorted after a long time of staring at them. Even rats would crawl out of the buildings, and their squeaks would buzz in their heads. Of course, these were only second-rate works. The works of the real masters were listed in the Lord's palace, and they could have a deep impact on Scarlet Count's thinking. To be honest, being in the street full of a rich artistic atmosphere, Han Dong really wanted to see what the real master's works were like. Further up, the streets near the top of the mountain were sublimated again. Most of the residents here were hybrid demons. In order to sublimate their artistic thinking, most of them were in a state of imagination. Because they sat in place for a long time, months or even years, to draw and create, their bodies were severely degenerated. They were even treated as a new home by the rats that lived in the street. The cone-shaped bodies of the stacked cities were full of black holes, and rats crawled in and out of their bodies. In exchange for the degenerated bodies, they had an abnormally active brain. Similar to Dr. Swollen, their brains were 4 to 6 times the size of an ordinary person. At the same time, there were also different numbers of spiral brain holes on the surface of their brains. This was not the entrance to the rat nest, but a breathing hole. It allowed the fresh gray fog air to be directly inhaled into the cerebral layer to achieve the effect of refreshing the brain. They could also grow delicate tentacles made of brain cells from the brain holes to add a finishing touch to the work, or to carry out an auxiliary creation. The works created by this group of hybrid demons had a particularly strong impact on the mind. Staring at it for more than 10 seconds would allow the distorted life on the paper to project into the individual's head and gnaw on their thoughts. When the distorted life on the paper was projected into Han Dong's head, it was directly swallowed by an even larger blood dog and turned into nourishment for the talent tree. Just as everyone was gradually adapting to the strange art in Fallen City, a low and gloomy music came from above. They were about to arrive at the central street where the art festival was held. Chapter 807. Count, when you came here before, did you also see such an artistic scene? Almost the same, but the atmosphere was not so dense. The art festival is in progress, so it is reasonable for the atmosphere to be dense. In this way there is no problem. At least we can be sure that the other party did not deliberately make such a city painting scene against us. Moreover, the artworks that I have seen so far have no effect on me. TSK. What effect can the low-level works created by this kind of trash hybrid demon have? If it was just this group of inferior hybrid demons stationed here, would this count be afraid before? I can kill them all in minutes, okay? These idiots are not even an appetizer. When you reach that guy's palace, you will naturally feel it. However, there is one thing I need to remind you. What is it? Once, when I noticed the abnormality, I decided to escape the city overnight. The scene that I saw was completely different from the original city street scene. It may be an illusion caused by the thought invasion, or it may be a special method set by the overlord in the city. At that time, I was in a hurry to escape, so I did not investigate further. Completely different city? What kind of scene is it? A distorted and abstract fallen city. Very interesting information, Count. You are quite reliable. Don't go against the painter. We can talk about anything. Rest assured, unless I am forced into a corner, I will not take the initiative to provoke this atavistic body. That's right. If I kill this painter, it should be a great help to you, Count. For example, by absorbing the blood of the atavistic body, maybe it will let you, Count, have a breakthrough and even touch the atavistic body. Don't. This Count is now in a good state, there is no need for a breakthrough. Han Dong snickered when he heard that. The more scared Count was, the more Han Dong wanted to see what the atavistic body, hybrid demon looked like. Along the red brick paved streets, all the way up, they finally arrived at the Vanuatu Street in the mountaintop area. Only those who passed the art review or were invited by the overlord could enter this main street. At the entrance there was a huge hybrid demon, mature demon, guarding it. This was also the first time he had seen a non-spiritual type hybrid demon since he had come up the mountain. Its huge body took up almost a third of the street, and the aura it emitted was slightly weaker than the bamboo flute messenger. He was wearing a leather coat with a strong religious color. The surface of the leather was inlaid with various styles of crosses, and some pages of the Bible were fixed. In his left hand, he held a meat hammer, a crimson heavy hammer made of compressed meat with sharp spikes growing between the meat. In his right hand, he was holding a forbidden shield. The surface of the shield was covered with forbidden words. More than 10 different human hands were fixed on the surface of the shield, with iron nails piercing through the fingers and the bottom of the shield, as if to express that no one was allowed to pass through. Without the structure of his skull, it was unknown how he could use his sensory abilities. Another mature hybrid demon, as expected of a city that corresponds to a medium title deed. However, it seems to be a newly formed mature body. Its strength is not as strong as Count or the hidden corpse that I just recruited. The envoy in charge of leading the way, Zoro, said. Gouda, these are the honored guests invited by the Lord to participate in the art festival. The guard called Gouda didn't directly let them pass. Instead, he held the forbidden shield in his hand and leaned towards the crowd. The hands fixed on the surface of the shield opened their eyes of different sizes and carefully observed this group of outsiders, especially in front of Han Dong for a long time. After confirming that the masks worn by the 4 people were emitting the aura of the Lord's palace, he slowly moved his body and allowed them to pass. Please don't mind. Gouda is a loyal servant that the Lord picked up from the outside, except for the Lord's direct orders. He doesn't listen to anything. We are now entering the core street covered by this year's art festival. Only qualified hybrid demons with artistic attainments can participate. Everyone is allowed to have high-level artistic exchanges, creations, and art sales here. At the same time, they are also allowed to visit the Lord's private palace and art gallery for a limited time, and accept the art assessment from the Lord. Only a few talented hybrid demons can be favored by the Lord and work in the art gallery. Okay. It was another important piece of information. From Han Dong's observation, Perugia had a serious hierarchical system. From the foot of the mountain to the top of the mountain, the corresponding level of residence in different areas was different. Even the current main street was divided into high-level artists and masters who could be recruited by the Lord to work in the art gallery. In other words, the core combat power of Perugia was basically concentrated in the Lord's palace. Moreover, Han Dong also faintly saw another problem. A large part of the hybrid demons here didn't like the artistic culture left by humans. They just wanted to improve their spiritual power by pursuing the artistic realm. They hoped to achieve self-improvement through artistic creation and reach the realm of atavism. It was still a primitive impulse to pursue power. When stepping on Vanuatu Street, the spiritual pressure in all aspects suddenly increased. The sacred defense line in Wino's mind was impacted to a certain extent. Just when she tried to pray to herself, she was pulled by Han Dong. Sister Wino, if you use your ability here, you will be targeted. Let me help you reduce the pressure. Han Dong hugged her to his side and then put his mouth next to Wino's ear. Such an action made her face under the mask immediately blush, but when she thought that she was acting as Nicholas's wife, she tried her best to suppress the resistance in her heart. Ha ha ha! The crazy laughter entered her ears. The unprecedented refreshing feeling made Wino return to the state when she first came up the mountain. The whispers and strange sounds in her ears, the rat beasts and colors in her consciousness all disappeared. Nicholas, you! Follow me the whole way, don't leave for any reason. Okay, Wino was a very strong girl since she was young. No matter what she did, she wanted to be the first and be stronger than the boys. This was the main reason why she could pass the combat nun test. A feeling of dependence that she had never felt before swept through her body. Staring at the young man beside her who hugged her, she no longer felt any repulsion in her heart. Just as they were about to arrive at a November 4th square in the city center, the messenger who led the way suddenly stopped. Please follow me directly to the Umbria Art Gallery to participate in the highest palace banquet that the Lord will also attend. Did something happen? The Lord gave a very high evaluation of your mask design, especially the three of you. You are exempted from the process of artistic creation in the square. I hope you have adapted to the artistic atmosphere here. Don't show any uncomfortable attitude in front of the Lord. Chapter 808. It's exactly the same trick. Back then, when this count came to this ancient city, he said that he would take me to stroll around the city and experience the local customs and customs. When we climbed to the top of the mountain, he changed his mind and asked me to go to the Lord's palace. He said that he had already set up a banquet and invited me, the Blood Lord who came from afar. In a situation where it was not easy to refuse, this count fell into this guy's trap. The palace is this guy's lair. There's no other way. Since the Lord has already made a request for a banquet, if I refuse now, I will be targeted by the Lord. Damn it! You shouldn't have gotten involved in the first place. During the 2 days I lived in the palace, it was like falling into a monster's food pot. In addition to the mental abnormality, there was also a feeling that I could be eaten at any time. Be eaten? Why do you have such a feeling? This count often ate raw meat when he was young. To some extent, I can smell such a similar smell in the palace. But there's no way to be sure. There was a big problem with my mental state during those few days, and I even suspected that my memory had been changed. Okay, I'll pay attention. Han Dong turned to Wino, who was disguised as his wife. Please be sure to lower your head throughout and don't look at any works of art in any palace. You also need to lean against me at all times during the meal. You must not look directly at the Lord here. Among the four of us, only Knight Charlie can really fight against the Lord. Okay. As for Demps and Knight Charlie, there was no need to remind them. Umbria Art Gallery, Lord's Palace. It was located in the center of Perugia, 4th of November Square. It was once the city government and the most famous gallery in the country. The bamboo flute connected to the lungs played a gloomy and low melody that could easily induce others to commit suicide. It used the sound of the flute to identify the identity. Rumble, the guard inside, began to spin the heavy pulley device. The heavy iron door, which had been rusted by wind erosion, was slowly sinking into the ground, revealing the opening to the inside of the palace. The moment the iron door sank into the ground, squeak, 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 countless rats rushed out crazily. There were so many of them that the rats even stepped on the bodies of their own kind, reaching a height of several meters. Huh! He shook his head, and the terrifying rat tide immediately disappeared. Perhaps what he saw just now was an illusion, or perhaps it was a reflection of the palace's aura, or perhaps it was something that happened in another realm. Han Dong just happened to catch a glimpse of it. Wino lowered her head the entire time. Demps adjusted his spectacles with a calm expression. Under Knight Charlie's mask there was a frown. The banquet hall is on the third floor of the mansion. There are still more than 40 minutes before the meal. I will first familiarize you with the structure of the palace and bring you to your respective rooms. After all, the art festival will last for 3 days. As distinguished guests who have come from afar, the Lord has already arranged a high-class guest room for you inside the mansion. It's a trap. Count jumped out again. With a feeling of curiosity and nervousness, he officially stepped into the palace. Except for Han Dong, the other 3 had taken corresponding protective measures. Demps adjusted the special bronze mirror worn on his face and secretly changed it to a filter lens, which could effectively reduce the intake of visual pollution. Charlie even used a kind of puppet physique to temporarily turn the naked eye into a puppet's eyes. The effect was far better than ordinary goggles. Wino prayed silently in her head to strengthen the holy light defense. Of course, she relied on Han Dong to a large extent. She only needed to follow him and look at the ground the whole time. The main color was beige. It was paired with a large number of beam structures. It was illuminated by multi-bracket candlestick. In the hall on the first floor, which was overflowing with a classical atmosphere, there were not too many works of art. There was only a row of paintings, a huge surreal painting, with the deep universe as the background. The left and right arms were only connected through a brain. The left hand was covered with delicate skin, like a soft female arm. The right hand was rotten and swollen, and there were even rat teeth and hair in the gangrenous area. On the open palm, the sun and the moon were suspended. Understanding the truth. This painting is the feudal lord's favorite work. It represents the feudal lord's spiritual dynamic when he was atavistic and the process of his mind when he touched the truth. If you are also a hybrid demon, this painting should be able to bring you the sublimation of your thinking. Understanding my ass. This count has seen this painting before. Why didn't I understand it at all? It doesn't help to understand the truth at all. Han Dong ignored Count's various blabbering. He did not care about how this painting would affect him. He stared at the painting with his eyes wide open, trying to understand the meaning behind it. Please come this way. The first and second floors of the palace have been transformed into the VIP accommodation area by the feudal lord. The feudal lord will often invite creatures with artistic talent to his palace and provide the highest level of service, just to discuss art together and find confidants. Follow me, your rooms are arranged here. They turned from the main hall to the corridor on the left. Occasionally, they could hear some mouse sounds coming from the corner and strange conversations coming from the guest rooms. It seemed that the art festival had attracted many artistic geniuses, and they were all arranged to rest in the palace. Can you arrange 3 guest rooms? Is there a large guest room that can accommodate 4 of us? The messenger smiled and tried his best to explain. This is the main palace of Perugia. The feudal lord pays more attention to some details. It's not suitable to live in a group in such a noble palace. 2 rooms, 1 for me and my wife, 1 for the 2 of them. I believe you can see that they are actually that kind of relationship. On the other hand, Demps and Charlie, who were walking side by side at the back, were a little that. Okay. I'll leave the keys to these 2 rooms to you. After about 15 minutes, you can go directly to the banquet hall. I'll send you here. Okay. As the messenger left, Han Dong and the others looked at each other and returned to their rooms. They thoroughly checked the rooms that they needed to stay in during this period. Then, there was a burst of crazy laughter that could not be suppressed. Just as Count said, the painting that seemed to have no big problems would cause a kind of gnawing mental erosion when one recalled it. Thousands of rats would rush out from behind the painting and try to gnaw Han Dong's brain, gnawing the talent tree hidden deep in his consciousness. However, as the black vortex on the surface of Han Dong's torso rotated, crazy laughter was heard. Several terrifying blood dogs also formed around the talent tree. big mouths with thousands of teeth and tongues that stretched out dozens of tentacles. The blood dogs gnawed all the rats in a short period of time. Nicholas, the newly formed crazy laughter system, is really powerful. Count was shocked. He did not expect Han Dong to be able to withstand it. At the same time, the two young men next door also came to the room. Demps used special fingers to dig out a concrete rat from his mouth and crush it. Night Charlie sacrificed an ordinary puppet to avoid the mental erosion caused by the painting. Wino, who had not seen the painting during the whole process, naturally did not have to resist anything. Everyone withstood the first round of mental impact. Such a scene was also seen by a certain existence in the palace. The indescribable strange mouth hidden under the robe showed an extremely strange smile. Chapter 809. There were still 15 minutes before the banquet started. The four of them temporarily gathered in the room for a short discussion, sharing the hidden clues they had seen since entering the city and some of their own inferences. The art festival must be a conspiracy, but what was the real purpose of the conspiracy? The hybrid demons would not be stupid enough to receive humans because of their own interests and even take the initiative to retreat in the siege battle. After all, a medium-sized land deed was not a small thing. It symbolized the Lord's identity and the trust and gift of the old king. On the surface, the Lord may want to find out the secrets of the expeditionary army through Han Dong and the others, and then use mind control to let the four return to the army and create internal chaos. However, all of this was based on the premise of control. If Han Dong and the others were not controlled, what else would the Lord do? Would he reveal his nature and directly attack the four of them to forcibly control them? Or his initial purpose was not to control the four of them to obtain military intelligence, but something that involved deeper things, something that could not be inferred from the existing information. There were only so many inferences in general. If you want to understand, you must go deep into the palace and the core of the hybrid demon city. At the end of the discussion, Night Charlie added, "This city seems to be trying to disguise something as much as possible. Just like the puppets I make, no matter how close they are to real people, there are still subtle differences and more or less inconsistencies. The siege battle can't mobilize the entire army. The battle must be based on the world rules, which means that the forces mobilized cannot exceed the size of the city. If we can't find what is buried deep in the city, even if the siege battle can be won, our army will suffer great casualties, which will seriously affect the next expedition. 3 days. Try to find out the secrets of this city, as much as possible while ensuring that the mind is not invaded." Okay. Banquet hall, chandeliers composed of 108 small holy images illuminated the large hall. At the bottom of the hall, there was a marble table of more than 10 meters long. 21 sets of tableware were placed. The chef wearing a white pig mask was slowly putting the appetizers on the table. Artists who passed the art assessment or were directly invited would enjoy the banquet of the highest level in Perugia, and have the honor of eating at the same table with the Lord. Han Dong and the others found a seat that was further away from the host's table. Wino's mask had been specially modified by Han Dong. It was covered with a layer of tentacles. It could further disguise her and completely block her vision, preventing visual pollution. As for the rest of the guests, more than half of them were not from Perugia. Instead, they were members of tribes, villages, or organizations. They were all inclined towards the spirit type. They had heard that Lord Perugia was an atavistic mantis demon and had unique attainments in the spirit. They had come here to find a way to improve their spirit ability, or to look at the art to understand the concept of atavism in advance. Most of the people sitting here were hybrid demons, and most of them were newborn demons. There were also 2 demonic creatures with outstanding talent in the field of art who passed the benchmark assessment and obtained the opportunity to participate in the banquet. It was time for the banquet. The candlelight instantly turned grayish-white. Before they could see the Lord's figure, his voice was the first to reach them. It was as if the voice from the deep space of the universe was paired with the hissing from the bottom of the abyss. The two overlapped and produced an ethereal sound. The language used was also a kind of Esperanto that could be understood by any kind of mantis demon. In addition, it was a kind of Italian that was learned from the local area so that the four special humans could understand it. Thank you, distinguished guests with outstanding artistic attainments, for coming to my residence. Listening to the strange overlapping words, the distinguished guests looked at the top of the stairs of the banquet hall. The heavy door engraved with the sun emblem and the moon emblem was pushed open by two strong servants. The Lord of Perugia City with a medium title deed, a high-level existence that could leave a psychological shadow on Scarlet Count, the atavistic body that Han Dong had never seen before. It was slowly appearing in a suspended manner. The first thing that caught his eye was the five-colored holy robe draped on the Lord's body. His face and most of his body were covered in it, and it was impossible to directly see the original form of this atavistic body. 4 arms and 4 legs and caged bird were the core characteristics of this lord. 4 arms. 2 of his arms were crossed in front of his chest, the other 2 arms were in the posture of the lobby painting, understanding the truth. They stretched to the left and right respectively, as if they were holding the sun and the moon in their palms. 4 legs. 2 of his legs stretched out from the middle of the holy robe, showing a sitting posture. The other 2 legs stretched out naturally from the bottom of the holy robe, showing a floating posture. Caged bird. There were 2 curved horns on the top of his head covered by the hood. A thin wire was connected between the horns, used to suspend a special metal birdcage. A live sparrow was living in the birdcage, although the 5-colored holy robe covered the Lord's figure. However, such a posture was shocking enough. The caged bird tied between his long horns was also thought-provoking. It revealed the Lord's desire to control. At the same time, there was one more point. As the Lord's 2 legs stretched out from the holy robe in a sitting posture, the holy robe was slightly stretched by these 2 legs, and the original structure of his body could be faintly seen. However, even the mantis demons who attended the banquet had an indecent attitude. No one dared to look directly at the Lord's true body. Only Han Dong, who was sitting at the back, was secretly using the spying ability of the demon eye to try to spy on the secret under the holy robe. Through the darkness, unraveling the essence, squeak, 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 he was obviously spying with his eyes, but what came was a burst of crisp mouse sounds. Han Dong had to use his palm to cover his mouth and use crazy laughter. But he didn't laugh. After dispersing the mice in his head, a terrifying scene was successfully spied on. The result of this spying caused a drop of blood to flow down from between his eyebrows. The low-level demon eye suffered serious visual damage after spying on high-level existences. Is this the posture of the atavistic body? Much-shaped stars, inscriptions made of mouse eyes, abyss piled up with corpses. Just as Han Dong recalled this scene and felt that it was inappropriate, a soft finger quietly fell on his back. Massage and massage, the discomfort in his body and mind dissipated. At this time, Demps, who was wearing a mask, was looking at him, and his voice immediately came into his mind. You really dare, Nicholas? You dare to directly spy on the original state of the atavistic body. Chapter 8:10. Demps didn't advocate directly prying into the Lord's true form. Not to mention whether Han Dong could resist the mental pressure and all kinds of images that could evoke primitive fear. This kind of prying was considered a very impolite behavior in itself. Fortunately, Han Dong was secretly prying through the little magic eye that was hidden. The Lord didn't seem to notice it, but he also seemed to notice it, but he didn't care too much. Demps quietly massaged him. Han Dong, who slowly calmed down, revealed a satisfied smile under the mask and also sent a voice transmission. It won't kill me to take a look. Besides, I did see something crucial. Oh, how crucial! It's so crucial to be able to deduce the essence. Let's talk about it when we go back to bed. The two under the mask stopped communicating. The candlelight flickered. The Lord slowly floated down from the platform on the second floor of the banquet hall and landed on the host's seat. The hands that were used to carry the sun and moon remained the same. The hands that were crossed in front of his chest slowly flattened on both sides of the cutlery, holding the knife and fork. An ethereal voice came from under the holy robe. It wasn't the head that was speaking, but the entire body. Enjoy the food that I prepared for everyone, including the 4 humans who came from afar. I also prepared local Italian cuisine for you. It should suit your taste. The pig head chef served the appetizers to the distinguished guests. Peruvian-style sashimi. The delicate fish fillet was decorated with celery and the surface was drizzled with fragrant gravy. The fragrance that assailed the nostrils made the hybrid demons who were born in small tribes or who didn't pay attention to food a little unable to hold back. Every diner had received a special reminder before eating: they must not show any discomfort in front of the Lord. However, these hybrid demons liked it, but it didn't mean that Han Dong and the others liked it. Not to mention whether it was delicious or not, there was a problem with the ingredients used in this appetizer. Celery was planted outside the city, and it was currently wriggling on the surface of the fish fillet like an earthworm. The sashimi itself wasn't completely dead. Because of the stimulation of the celery, it immediately curled up and rolled up the celery on its own. As for the thick and fragrant gravy, Han Dong guessed that it was cooked with rat meat and added with special spices. It was also possible that the gravy itself was smelly. It was only because he was currently in the depths of the palace that his mind was invaded. Even if it was smelly, it still smelled extremely fragrant. Pollution, nausea, parasitic risk. Han Dong naturally could not let such filthy meat enter the mouth of the pure night wino. He wasn't in a hurry to eat. First, he observed how the other guests ate and whether they needed to take off their masks. Most of the hybrid demons continued to wear masks while eating. Through the openings on the surface of the mask, or through the gaps at the bottom of the mask, tentacles grew out. He curled the knife and fork around his mouth and slowly put the food into his mouth. Since that was the case, Han Dong could do the same. Han Dong had set up a unique motto in advance regarding the food outside the city: whether it's fishy or stinky, it's all meat in my mouth. In the inner layer of the mask worn by Wino, there was a mucosal layer of tentacles that Han Dong had set up. The moment it was wrapped in the sashimi, it triggered a void transmission and sent the dish directly into Han Dong's mouth. It's quite delicious. This fresh fish fillet and celery is very chewy. Coupled with the fragrant gravy, it makes people feel like their clothes are about to burst. Next, as the main dishes were served, Han Dong transformed into a taotai and began to eat the meat in big mouthfuls. Of course, the so-called big mouth was also covered under the mask. He still looked very gentle on the outside. Black vortex torso paired with faceless head. He just shouted Oreo and swallowed everything in his stomach. This kind of food outside the city was completely nutritious for Han Dong. It didn't matter if it was smelly or not. But eating was eating. Han Dong, who was extremely perceptive, faintly felt a sense of being watched from all directions during the meal. It was as if something was observing the guests through the walls of the banquet hall. But due to etiquette, Han Dong couldn't look around. Just as Han Dong rushed to eat the main dishes for 2 people and planned to use the action of wiping his mouth to capture the source of the sense of being watched, the first accident happened at the banquet table. A newborn body hybrid demon had never eaten such a delicacy before. Under the bombardment of a round of main dishes, he finally lost his composure. He threw away the knife and fork and took off the mask, revealing the head that had completely evolved into a mouth structure like a rice bucket. He poured the main dishes into his body. Chirp, 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 the caged bird made a burst of sound. The Lord's arm used to carry the moon pointed to the VIP who lost his composure. The palm made a cross gesture in the air. The ink-colored, X-shaped pattern directly formed on the surface of the VIP's body, forcibly breaking the limbs, twisting and compressing. Finally, even the tableware used by this person was erased by the ink. What ability is this? Han Dong's attention was instantly attracted. He tried to analyze the ability through the situation he had just observed, but there was no result. Demps was silent, and Knight Charlie also showed a difficult expression. After a while, the banquet ended. Distinguished guests from afar, you are tired from the journey, so you are not in a hurry to go to the art corridor for a visit and in-depth discussion. For the rest of the day, please stay in your room and have a good rest. You can also leave the palace and relax in the city. Tomorrow, I will arrange for you to go to the art corridor in batches. In this way, as the Lord floated away, the guests returned to their rooms. Outside the banquet hall, a group of painters with different postures who were recognized by the Lord were painting. They surrounded the banquet hall, and through the stone wall, they were painting each VIP in detail. This was also the real reason why Han Dong felt the sense of being watched. The realistic portraits of Demps, Charlie, and Wino all appeared on the canvas. However, there was a problem with the artists who were responsible for Han Dong's painting. How about the painting? Lord, this person can't be painted. This group of painters were not only selected mantis demons, but they also had the artistic cells that came from the Lord. It was impossible for them to be unable to paint. On the canvas that several painters worked together, Han Dong was painted into a deformed monster. And Han Dong's brain couldn't be painted no matter what. All the painters tried their best, but they could only barely draw a circle and add some shadows. It looked like a braised egg grafted on a strange body. It was quite out of place and had no beauty. Seeing this scene, the Lord was a little happy. Pay special attention. Then, make the models of the other three as soon as possible. Yes. Chapter 8:11. Han Dong and the others didn't know that a perfect replica of them was secretly being made. A targeted conspiracy was brewing. As Han Dong expected, even if they could resist the mental erosion from the palace, it would not affect the Lord's plan. Fortunately, Han Dong had some gains at the banquet, otherwise, it would be difficult to make any progress in the remaining day. Burp after 2 servings of food, Han Dong, who returned to his room, burped loudly. Wino, who watched Han Dong enjoy the food, also quickly took off her mask and filled her mouth with the dried meat and biscuits she carried with her. Next, the 4 of them sat together and started some discussions at this stage. I'm sure this Lord knows about our ability to resist mental corruption. However, the Lord allowed us to rest for a day. It seems that his basic plan does not require us to be mentally controlled, but has other purposes. Do you have any relevant inferences? Or talk about the important discovery at the banquet? Han Dong first threw out a question. He intended to leave the information he saw about the main body to the end. Knight Charlie touched his bald Mediterranean head as he talked about the ability that the suzerain used at the banquet. Rule erasure. Although the level of the atavistic body, hybrid demon, is high, this level of ability should not appear in him. If he can really achieve direct erasure of matter, it must be a realm that the mythical body or even higher existences can reach. Han Dong hurriedly added, "That's right. Could it be that the diner seemed to have been erased? In fact, some kind of spatial transfer took place and brought him to another layer of space? Is this possible?" Charlie nodded. Well, the possibility of spatial transfer is very high. As I said before, this city feels very strange to me, as if it is fake. Maybe under the skin of the city is the real Perugia city. This erased diner was actually brought to the real city. Well, let's keep this speculation for now. Let me talk about the information I saw at the banquet. The lord that participated in the banquet was not the real body. Although the true form I saw showed the characteristics of atavism, I didn't see the most important thing, which was the individual consciousness. My demon eye can effectively distinguish between living and dead things. Every puppet that Senior Charlie controlled had a soul and self-consciousness. But in the Overlord's body, I only saw scenes of indescribable progenitor postures, which indeed belonged to the atavistic body. However, I didn't see the self-consciousness that controlled this body. I'm guessing that the real suzerain's body has been further refined, or perhaps he's gotten a stronger body. This original atavistic body is now a control body, participating in various activities and banquets in Perugia to meet everyone. How sure are you that this isn't the real body? If it's just the demonic eyes prying, I'm only 30% confident. However, such prying was obviously impolite. If the Lord's main consciousness was on him, the prying would definitely be noticed. However, my impolite behavior did not incur the Lord's wrath. Therefore, there is a high probability that my deduction is correct. Not bad. Charlie gave a very high evaluation. Although he had long recognized this junior, Han Dong's performance made him look at him in a new light. However, the above series of deductions only involved Perugia City and the essence of the Lord. As for the conspiracy behind, it was still impossible to infer from any angle. Since the clues in our hands can't be inferred, let's rest for a day. Tomorrow we will go to the art corridor with the Lord. The Lord may reveal some details of the conspiracy. Although the Lord doesn't show any expression on the surface, we can't rule out the possibility that he will secretly target us. During tonight, everyone must avoid acting alone. Okay. That was it. At 9 o'clock in the evening, the discussion ended. Demps and Night Charlie returned to their dormitory. Tonight, they needed to stay in the extremely dangerous palace bedroom. In the past, Count had suffered from an indescribable mind erosion during his stay, and he could barely resist it with the help of the blood brew. Han Dong conducted a thorough inspection of the dormitory again. After ensuring that there were no problems, he allowed Winoke to move freely within the dormitory. Thank you. When the two of them were alone, Winoke's cheeks were slightly rosy. During today's banquet, Han Dong took care of Winoke throughout the entire process, which made her feel more dependent on him. I'm good at dealing with pollution and mind erosion. Sister Winoke's ability to kill hybrid demons is far stronger than mine. As a combat nun, I'm already very grateful that you're willing to stand out and support this extremely dangerous infiltration mission. I estimate that when we reveal the secrets of this city and the Lord's true conspiracy, the other party will most likely not be able to afford it and go against the pre-signed contract to fight us head-on. At that time, the expeditionary force may not be able to help, and they will have to rely on the four of us to break through. Sister Winoke, your holy flame will be a great weapon to break through. Before Winoke could respond, Scarlet Count once again forced himself to appear in the way of his head growing in the mouth of a dog, and made a lot of noise. Hey! We agreed to just come in and take a look, and there won't be any conflict. What? Nicholas, you want to fight with the atavistic body with your four-man team? Do you want to die? Do you think that just because you can block the mind erosion in the palace, you can fight against the entire fallen city? Let's get through tonight first. Nicholas, you're always so self-righteous. It was the same when you started the land deed war without thinking about it. It was the same when you directly bypassed the army and went deep into Scarlet Mountain Villa alone to face this count. Self-righteousness will lead to destruction. Oh, then why did I win? Get lost. Haha. Count, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I won't take the initiative to start a war, unless this lord can't sit still. Take care of yourself. Otherwise, the next time this lord holds a banquet, the ingredients used will be your flesh and blood. The bickering with Count ended. Perhaps it was because he had eaten too much strange food today. Or perhaps it was because he had been contaminated by the depraved aura that permeated the streets along the way into the city. It made Han Dong's body emit the smell of ollie. Moreover, due to the strong adaptability of his body, he even actively squeezed out smelly and sticky impurities from his pores. Let's take a shower. Sister Winoke, you should come too. Han Dong didn't mean anything else when he said this. It was just that considering that they were in the palace, the two of them had to act together as much as possible to avoid being targeted by the Lord alone. What did you say? Chapter 8:12. Since it was the highest-level palace in Perugia, the rooms set up for each guest were naturally quite high-end. Each room was equipped with a large bathroom with marble floor tiles and a granite bathtub. Take a shower. Sister Wino, come with us. What did you say? Wino thought she heard wrong. Take a shower together. For Wino, who was born a nun, this was a very sensitive word. Also, ever since she was young, it was the first time she heard such outrageous words from someone of the opposite sex. She used to be in the Holy Knights. Because of her noble royal bloodline, her graceful and tall figure, and her beautiful face under her wavy blonde hair. Not only within the Holy Knights, but also in the knights next door, a large number of men of the opposite sex came to pursue her. Everyone sent precious materials with holy attributes one after another, and the most they asked for was to go shopping and eat. It was out of line to take a shower at the beginning. Nicholas, didn't you say I'm only going to act as your wife? Why are you doing this for real? Sister Wino, what I mean is that the two of us need to be together at all times. If one of us is in the bathroom and the other is in the bedroom, we might be targeted by the Lord alone. I'm really smelly and sticky, so I have to wash up. How about this? Han Dong came up with a foolproof plan. He touched the crow mark on the back of his right hand. This ability, which was given by Mr. Black and White, could be used to transform into any form of black attire. The bird-beak doctor's robe was a commonly used type. So far, Han Dong had conjured up a pair of swimming trunks of excellent quality with feathers, with the head of a crow printed on it. This will do. Wino, do you need to take a shower? No. You can take a shower first. Han Dong did not hesitate and quickly soaked his body in the bathtub. Wino blushed and stood in the bathroom in a dignified manner. Her eyes would occasionally look at Nicholas in the bathtub. Compared to the thin and weak little brat from before, Nicholas was now much more mature. Compared to other knights, his muscles and plasticity were much worse, and his looks were also average. However, the outline of muscles could be faintly seen between his arms. His torso was no longer as thin and weak as before. Two rather good shallow abdominal muscles could be seen. His appearance only needed to be passable. To Wino, the most important thing was Nicholas could provide her with a sense of dependence that she had never felt before. Standing in the misty bathroom, Wino, who was in a daze the whole time, thought of the dangerous Perugia city. She thought of the scene when she was taking a bath at home. Every time she took a bath, the maid would also help her. Do you need me to help you scrub your back? Han Dong's face was filled with surprise. Such words usually came from maids. Knight Wino was not only his senior, she was also a member of the royal family. If word got out that a member of the royal family had helped him bathe, some of the higher-ups in the royal family would probably cause trouble for Han Dong. No need, I'm done. Oh. If Sister Wino wants to take a bath, I can cover my eyes. As he spoke, Han Dong took out a piece of equipment from Count, the conical eye protector, which completely blocked his vision. This thing was not just for decoration. Count had once spent a lot of effort to design the eye protector blueprint, and then collected precious materials from everywhere to condense a kind of ultra-high purity black blood wine. He spent a lot of money to create this conical eye protector that was bound to his soul. It looked like some kind of black iron material, but in fact, it could dissolve in blood at will and be stored in the body. Its main function was to suppress the thirst for blood and get rid of the blood god's control. At the same time, it could also greatly enhance other sensory abilities by limiting vision. For a blood life-like count, the use of blood and sound waves to perceive was far more important than vision. Han Dong wearing the conical eye protector and the way he laughed was somewhat similar to Scarlet Count. However, compared to the bright red Count, Han Dong, who leaned toward Black Death, seemed more gloomy and crazy. Then I'll take a bath too. He put in a new tub of clean warm water. Before Wino took a bath, she prayed in front of the bathtub and used a holy spell to completely purify the bathwater, removing the contaminants in it. He listened to the sound of clothes falling off one by one. Han Dong did not imagine any beautiful scenes, but carefully covered every corner of the bathroom with his perception to make sure that no one came to cause trouble during this period. However, less than 2 minutes had passed. Wino, who was washing her body in the bathtub, said embarrassedly, Nicholas, did you hear the sound of a mouse? Huh? Han Dong could hear everything. Moreover, he could be sure that, under the coverage of his perception, there were no mice in the bathroom or even the entire guest room. The reason why Wino heard the sound of a mouse was similar to the situation with Count. Thought invasion. Wino has been by my side since she stepped into the palace. She has not seen a single piece of art, and she did not eat anything at the banquet, but she was still affected. It seems that the holy protection set in Wino's brain did not work either? It seems that Count was not bluffing. Why would Count bluff? I'm kind of hoping that all of you will be affected by the thought invasion and become the pigs of the Lord of Perugia City. Han Dong ignored Count. He quickly knelt beside the bathtub and put his hands on Wino's head. Are you better? The sound of a mouse should be a sign of a spiritual invasion. I can still hear a little. There's more? Sister Wino, move forward. We have to figure out the source of the sound. It will be troublesome if the spiritual seed is planted. Okay. The situation was urgent, so Wino did not think much. As she moved her body forward, she made some space for him. Han Dong did not hesitate and stepped into the bathtub. The two of them stuck together, one in front and one behind. Han Dong did not have any other thoughts when he did this. It was because through the contact of the head, he could not eliminate the sound of the mouse. Han Dong suspected that this kind of thought invasion might not only target the brain, but it might also affect other parts of the body. After all, the secondary nerves of the brain could spread to all parts of the body. His body was close to hers, and he immediately found something. He found a small source of contamination in every nerve joint of Wino's body. It was like a rice grain-shaped mouse egg. He did not know when it had been infected. As expected, it actually attacked every nerve joint of the body. No wonder Count was affected. Just as Han Dong was seriously analyzing, Wino's brain was heating up and she could not say a word. Sister Wino, I need to do a thorough cleansing of your entire body to prevent similar effects in the future. It might be a little uncomfortable, bear with it. Okay. Tentacle lover, creak, creak, creak. For a moment, dozens of small tentacles grew out from Han Dong's arm. They drilled into Night Wino's body through her pores and removed the mouse egg in every nerve joint. The slippery and flexible tentacles drilled into her body and swam between her flesh and her nerve. The uncomfortable and itchy feeling in Wino's body continued to grow. In addition, she was soaking in the same bathtub as the opposite sex. The nun's mind was hit by an unprecedented impact. She could no longer hold back such a strong sensory impact. In the closed bathroom, strange sounds kept coming out. Chapter 8:13. Just like that, the two of them spent 2 hours in the bathroom. When they opened the bathroom door, Wino, who had put on her knight armor again, almost walked out holding the wall, the strange feeling of tentacles wandering in her body, the guilt of violating the nun's taboo, and the rush of soaking in the bathtub with her lover for 2 hours. Wino, who had just turned 28 years old this year, had never felt any of these feelings. Several strong feelings collided in her body. If it wasn't for Han Dong's mental support, if it wasn't for the fact that they were in the dangerous hybrid demon palace, Wino would have fainted long ago. "Sister Wino, are you okay?" Han Dong, who walked out of the bathroom, looked calm as if he had solved the problem. "I'm okay. We have to go next door and tell Demps about the mind invasion method and how to remove it." Okay, Wino's legs were trembling slightly and she had to walk with her arms on the wall. Han Dong was a gentleman and quickly went forward to help her. When their bodies were close together, Wino immediately recalled the scene in the bathroom and couldn't help but scream. The two of them leaned against each other and went to the next room. Dong dong dong, after waiting for a long time, they heard the sound of footsteps. The scene after the door opened shocked Han Dong, and Wino quickly covered her eyes. For Wino, who had been meditating in the monastery and the holy nights all year round, this kind of scene was no less polluted than the hybrid demons. The cultured Dempus and the enigmatic senior Charlie squeezed through the doorway in a shirtless manner. Their lower bodies were wrapped in the matching bath towels in the room. Considering the long wait for the door to open, the two of them seemed to have just come out of the bathroom. No one knew what they were doing. "I didn't disturb you, did I?" Demps pushed the single-frame bronze mirror and said seriously, "To be exact, we did." "Then you guys continue, I'll come back later. Tell me what's the matter. We can continue after you finish." "It's about the problem of spiritual invasion. Not only does it target the head, but there are also miniature structures of rat eggs in every nerve node in the body. This kind of invasion, as long as you stay in the palace, you will be infected. Isn't that what we're doing? Senior Charlie and I are currently removing the rat eggs from each other's body." "Alright, please continue." As for what exactly the two of them were doing, it was unclear. However, Han Dong could roughly picture the words bathroom, two men, finger, and so on. Moreover, judging from Night Charlie's expression, he seemed to be quite satisfied with Demps's finger technique. Since the problem had been solved, Han Dong returned to his room. Considering the risk of mind invasion during sleep, naturally, Han Dong and Wino slept on the same big bed. After the intimate contact in the bathroom just now, it was easier to accept the fact that they slept in different beds. The blushing night Wino took off her sturdy knight's coat and slept with Han Dong in only her bra. She stared at the ceiling the whole time, occasionally glancing at the little boy beside her. "Sister Wino, ah." After being called by Han Dong, Wino was also shocked. She even had a strange idea of crossing the boundary of a nun. "Let's do it again later." "What again? To take a shower again?" Wino, who had been through too many shocks in a row, was already in a mess. "No. It's just that when you're sleeping, I may connect my tentacles to your brain." "Oh, okay." After saying that, a gray speckled tentacle connected to Wino's brain from her ear and entered a state of sleep. Their consciousness was connected, so their dream was naturally the same. The beginning of the dream was quite wonderful. The two held hands and walked on the streets of Perugia that were full of artistic atmosphere. During the art festival, a large number of paintings were placed in the square. Thousands of paintings and finished products were combined with the ancient city's flavor and the crescent moon in the sky that was completed by the dream. This kind of mountaintop scenery was unique in the world. However, not long after the two of them left, bursts of rat sounds came from all directions. It was just as Count said. The paintings were completely chewed up from the inside, and mad rats with crystallized eyeballs rushed out like a tide, trying to swallow the two of them in the dream. This was not just a dream. If they died here, it also meant that their minds would be invaded. Wino released the holy flame barrier, trying to burn away the mad rats that were swarming towards them. Some rat men slowly appeared in the darkness. They had black rat heads, and their rotten bodies were wrapped in canvas. They had strong fire resistance characteristics, and they forcefully crossed the holy flame barrier and pounced towards the two of them. But it was also because this was a dream. Everything connected to Han Dong's consciousness could be represented in the dream. Clang! The iron chain swept across. More than 10 ratmen's bodies were all cut off from the middle, and the rats' rotten flesh splattered everywhere. These pieces of flesh were also wrapped in hellfire, and burned as soon as they fell to the ground. In Ridray town, the 8th demon Atogu Gonzalez, who had officially awakened, had yet to reveal his true strength in the real world. This was also a powerful trump card that Han Dong had purposely hidden. At the same time, there were also several pink tentacles lying behind Han Dong. Nicole also quietly poked her head out, showing a look of disdain towards these disgusting low-level rats. As long as a rat dared to approach Han Dong, it would immediately be crushed by the tentacles. To a greater extent, Nicole used the secret technique of the deep sea to assist. Let's not look at these two anomalies. Because they were in the dream, Count's consciousness was also perfectly revealed. Thinking about how he was trapped in this city and was almost killed, Count was also furious. He wore a cone-shaped goggles and stood in the square, looking crazy. He held a bright red holy sword with both hands, and 2 terrifying blood dogs grew out of his back, directly killing the rats. Wino was also stimulated by the momentum. She held a flail in her hand, and every time she waved it, it would produce holy flames that could restrain the hybrid demons. In this way, the group of people in the dream forced the rat tide to retreat. Since Han Dong was dreaming, then he had no choice. It was the same for Dempus. He had encountered a similar rat tide in his dream. However, there was no need for Demps to do anything here. One man is an army, as expected of the strong person who shocked the holy city 10 years ago. Even if he violated the highest charter during the night election, the parliament was reluctant to deal with him. Instead, they found all kinds of excuses to deal with this person with the lowest criminal law, and finally handed him over to Captain Hugo to protect him. Senior Charlie is really powerful. In the dream, there were more than 100 thin threads that were connected through Charlie's fingers, simultaneously controlling different types of puppets, and killing all the rats that appeared in the dream in a short period of time. Night Charlie's massacre in the dream even made the Lord of Perugia, who was sleeping on the top floor of the palace, feel a tingling pain. Chapter 8:14. When he woke up, the scene in the dream was still vivid in his mind. Count was able to vent his anger in the dream. He no longer nagged about how scary this place was. Instead, he gradually changed his mind. He dared to face his inner demons and the horrifying painter in Perugia. Phew! That felt good. When he lifted the blanket, Han Dong's body was covered in sweat. Even the bedsheets were soaked. The wanton killing in the dream gave his spirit absolute satisfaction and rest. Nicholas Yu Wino also killed many rats in the dream. Wherever the holy flame went, all the rats were burned to ashes. However, Han Dong's performance was beyond imagination. To be exact, it was Han Dong's personal team. The Hell Demon, the 8-clawed Deep One, and the horrifying Scarlet Count. Sister Wino, why don't you take a shower? We'll follow the feudal lord and visit the art corridor later. Ah, shower again? Okay. Just when the two of them came out of the bathroom, there was a knock on the bedroom door. A servant wearing a pig mask pushed a fragrant breakfast cart into the room. At the same time, there was a letter from the feudal lord under the plate. It asked Han Dong and the others to go to the banquet hall from yesterday after breakfast. At that time, the feudal lord would personally lead them to the top floor of the palace, the art corridor. The feudal lord seems to be in a hurry. Yesterday's dream should be under his control. In the end, whether it was the trip in the city, the banquet in the palace, or the rats in the dream, all the thoughts were blocked by us. The next step. It should reveal the conspiracy of the art festival to a certain extent, right? What is your true face? Not knowing why, Han Dong was quite excited about the feudal lord's conspiracy. Why did the feudal lord set a condition that was disadvantageous to the war and lure the four of them into the city in advance? If he could not invade their minds and control their thoughts, then what was he after? Based on all the signs and inferences so far, this suzerain was definitely not an honest artist. Han Dong naturally ate the breakfast that was delivered to his door along with winos. Spaghetti in rat broth paired with fresh vegetables specially grown in Perugia was a delicacy for Han Dong. The teams gathered and headed to the banquet hall. Chirp, 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 the cry of the caged bird came from the second floor of the banquet hall. The lord was still in the same posture as yesterday, the caged bird hanging between the curved horns. His left hand held the moon, and his right hand held the sun. He didn't say his name, nor did he say anything superfluous. The other two hands in front of his chest beckoned to the four of them. Come up, humans from afar. Take a look at the art corridor that I built myself and experience the highest art that I understand. I also hope to get your opinions on the further refinement of the art corridor. Between the two arc-shaped marble staircases was a red carpet with golden edges. At the end of the staircase was the only entrance to the top floor of the palace. It was also the entrance to the corridor that symbolized the highest level of art in Perugia. Let's go. Han Dong asked Wino to hold on to him tightly and not peek at any of the works of art. Demps and Charlie were also very alert and went to the most dangerous area together. At the same time when the four of them entered the art corridor, at the foot of the mountain of Perugia, the mighty expeditionary army was stationed in the plains area at the foot of the mountain, with the Demon King's castle as the center. Through the mechanical god assistants equipped with the various legions, they used recycled brass alloy to build a 10-meter-high wall. Within a few hours, they built a village for the army of 3,000 to rest temporarily. Due to the implementation of the art exchange plan, the siege was postponed. The expeditionary army also got some time to rest because of this. However, it wasn't as if everyone had nothing to do. Instead, they were secretly arranging an important process. Experimental siege battle. The main purpose of this siege was not to take control of the city and destroy the title deed. Instead, it was to use the siege battle as a springboard to examine the attitude of the people outside the city toward the expeditionary army and the applicability of the world rules. The four generals had already set up sub-eyes in the four directions of north, south, east, and west. If there were other forces attacking from different directions during the siege, the generals would personally go out and eliminate the hybrid demon groups that tried to interfere with the siege. If there were mythical or even ancient king-level existences that ignored the world rules and came, the expeditionary army would also ignore the world rules and use all their forces to attack Perugia in an instant. Then, they would carry out a large-scale rapid transfer. All in all, this siege was an experiment on the world rules. Only by ensuring the applicability of the world rules could the great expedition be carried out smoothly. Otherwise, when the expeditionary army arrived at London with great difficulty and fought with the ancient king-level target, other ancient king-level existences that were scattered around the world would ignore the world rules and come from various regions to encircle and annihilate the expeditionary army. Demon King's Hall. After completing the basic arrangements, the four generals were discussing the situation of Perugia with the great demon commander. Naturally, the main person involved, Warren Nicholas, was also mentioned. Ma Long's face was filled with worry as he said, "Just from this matter alone, Nicholas was indeed a bit impulsive. Although this kid was able to kill a mature hybrid demon during the seed-breaking stage, he relied on a power that did not belong to him. There is a fundamental difference between the atavistic body and the mature body. Currently, the connection with them has been completely severed. The core of Perugia also has the characteristic of resisting the expeditionary eye. I suggest that we start the war early and give up the preferential treatment given by Perugia. However, Alex objected. Nicholas seems to be impulsive on the surface, but in reality, he's not an impulsive person. Otherwise, the great demon commander wouldn't have agreed to this operation. Besides, the operation team has plotted against Charlie. This person's strength is comparable to the atavistic body. If they are threatened with death internally, there will be a corresponding signal sent out. It won't be too late for us to provide support at that time. Since the plan has been implemented, there is no need to be overly hasty. The great demon on the throne also expressed his opinion. There is no doubt about the strength of Commander Charlie. However, the reason why I agreed to this operation is because of a young knight that I think highly of, Demps Martin. This person's overall vision and strategy are better than some military strategists that I have seen. Malone, there is no need to worry about this matter. Continue to wait for their news. These little guys might be able to play a miraculous role and help us take down this city easily. At this time, a charming aura filled the Demon King's hall. Xiaya, who didn't want to interrupt, looked at Malone as if she was looking at a scumbag and said arrogantly, "During the night election, didn't you all want this kid Nicholas? I thought you all knew him very well. Now, it seems that you all only value his strength. What an incompetent commander. I have secret contact with this kid Nicholas in private. I can be sure that, if we don't consider the title deed, traps, or some other factors of interference, just based on individual strength, this kid can directly face the atavistic body. The results of this experimental siege may exceed everyone's expectations. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.